Mother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. The little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Reveal your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching
Let your experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
They let us play with all our toys. They let us think that we're big boys. They let us make the louder noise, but women rule the world. They let us think we're Superman, that we're the only ones who can be strong, but we break on command, cause women rule the world.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. And we'll stop till I reach the top just to be there with you. And I still trip over my feet, and my heart's still scared.
Ignition sequence start.
I'm such a lucky guy.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Said the deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, and thank you so much for listening to us at spacedoutradio.com and on Spreaker. As once again we come in from the frozen Canadian tundra, battle our way past the wild animals, sidestep Bigfoot, and enter Uncle Jimbo's cabin, stoke the fire, heat this place up, and broadcast you live on this Thursday night, early Friday morning if you're on the East Coast. Here at SOR, we do this thing 7 days a week, 3 hours a night, as we want to be your official one-stop shop when it comes to the supernatural, paranormal, spiritual, and so much more. Spaced Out Radio's rockin' theme music is provided by guitar god Ron Bumblefoot THAL. You can find his new album, Little Brother Is Watching, by going to our website, spacedoutradio.com. If you're on social media, follow us on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. That's where we hide our archives. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. At this time, we want to welcome in our fans listening in on the SHR Media Network in the Spaced Out Radio chat room, along with Paranormal Forum, Euphoria Chronicles, and the SOR Space Travelers Club. If you're a fan of Spaced Out Radio, coming soon to our website is the Space Travelers membership, where for only $5 a month, just $5, you can win prizes, take part in private group interviews, have a special section on our website, and so much more. We're going to give you a heck of a lot more than just access to our archives. Tonight's show is brought to you by Rivulet Reiki and Readings, providing healings in person or at a distance. PurplePlates.com, helping heal your body, mind, and soul. The official newspaper of this show is the New Agora newspaper, and the official ghost hunting app of Spaced Out Radio is the iPhone app, Spirit Storybox. Tonight on SOR, we step into the spiritual world as for hundreds of years, people of all ages and of all statures of society have tried to solve one critical topic in life, communicating with the deceased. For centuries, planchettes and talking boards have been used as a main communication tool to speak with people who've passed over to the other side. In fact, it wasn't really until the early 20th century where religious leaders decided boards like the Ouija shouldn't be used because talking to the dead was considered taboo and unreligious, basically taking faith out of the church's beliefs. But is the Ouija board evil? Much like aliens, Hollywood has done a great job of connecting the darker side of communication with those on the other side to the Ouija board. On this show, we have had Karen Dahlman come on a couple of times and push the misconceptions to the side. Robert Murch, the grandmaster of the Ouija board, who is our guest tonight, has been on this show before. And he'll tell us once again the board isn't the evil storyteller it's believed. But there are people out there who have had bad experiences. And of course, those stories can't be ruled out either. RobertMurch.com is Robert's website as we talk everything Ouija tonight. We bring in Robert Murch right now. Robert, long time no talk. How have you been?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
It's always a pleasure to get you on, my friend. It always is, because, we learn so much about not only the Ouija board, but just everything in general. What made you decide in your life, because I believe I'm older than you, but you decided to make the Ouija board your passion? When did you decide, Robert?
It's cutting out a little bit on the audio.
Yeah, there we go. Now we're back. When did you decide? Cool. When did you decide, Robert, that you wanted to make the Ouija board your passion?
I don't know if there was ever like a one-time thing. I fall in love with Ouija and talking boards kind of every day. So it started 20 years ago. I guess actually 25 years ago when I started collecting, and I never really thought that I would end up
to having these experiences and taking your spiritual side with you. Did you decide at a young age that finding out more about the paranormal was what it was all about, or did you even connect the two as you were learning about it, that the Ouija board was a major staple of the paranormal?
Well, I mean, because of Hollywood, like you said, it's really hard to divorce the Ouija board from the paranormal. I mean, talking boards were invented to part the veil and speak to the other side. So, there's no way. I've never heard of someone who hasn't had that thought in their head that, this is how they're supposed to be used. But, when I started doing it, when I started researching it, I think the allure to these boards were the fact that they were so polarizing and they were so simple. I mean, you're talking about the biggest mystery of mankind. Is there life after death? What happens to us when, we move on? And there's this simple thing called a talking board with letters and numbers on it that you put your fingers on the planchette and you ask a question, and potentially that can answer that question. It's pretty amazing.
A lot of people look at this as something like maybe you've got an addiction to the other side, or maybe you've got some sort of demonic force on you, but you don't believe that for a second, do you?
Well, I'm definitely obsessed or possessed by these boards. I mean, I spend way more time doing this than I do any other thing. So people in my family will attest to how much time I put into it. But no, I don't. I've not had that demonic experience. I know a lot of people have. I've talked to people. I have many boards that have been donated to me by people who've had these experiences that they attribute to the demonic or about Zozo. But, I tell this to all the people all the time that the scariest things in my house are not the things in it, but the people who live here. So, unfortunately, the boards themselves are not the scary things.
When you look at the history of the board, and we're going to get more into the history here at the bottom of the hour because we're going to hop out for a break right after this couple seconds while we get everybody reorganized here, because due to that little technical snafu, there's a lot of people who are jumping back and forth, and I want to make sure they're all back to normal. But when you look at the history of the board and you look at what you have done with it, what's the biggest advancement you think has happened in the world of spirit and the Ouija board since its beginning?
I think an interesting thing that we see as we kind of step back and we look at the history and when talking boards come about is that it's timing. Why did the Ouija board take off when all these other different spirit communication devices didn't? And like any fad, it's really just timing. So it's mass manufacturing, a great marketing plan, right around the time when the United States is turning into and Canada are turning into these very industrial, countries. And so the world is changing from wanting to make things themselves to buying things that have a brand. And so even though Ouija was not the first talking board that was made, it is definitely the only one that has been made continuously for 125 years, and it is certainly what everyone thinks of. And that has to do with just the things I was talking about.
You still love it, though. It's become a passion, and I can hear the passion in your voice just when you talk about it, just like when I had you on a year ago talking about the talking board. You're so passionate about it. It's really ingrained in you, the whole concept of trying to tell the true story behind the Ouija board rather than what Hollywood has painted it as.
Yeah, I get to work on both sides of it. So it's the beauty of what I do and being a historian and again, working with so many different talented people. I could be one day appearing or working in the background on a paranormal TV show that's doing an investigation of a Ouija haunting or possession, and the next day I could be working with a museum or doing an article with the Smithsonian. So my life runs the gamut, which gives me really a neat perspective on these things that are such a part of our pop culture.
Robert, what was your family and your friends' reaction to this when you started becoming more and more polarized by the Ouija board and needed to learn the history and become really a historian on this? You're the world's major historian on this board.
My mom is so proud. No, when I first started, I think the thing that freaked most people out was just the number of boards. And I used to display them very differently than I do now. When I first started, we're going back to 1992. I was in college. I rented my first house, and I had them, like floor to ceiling. And then when I moved home, same thing. They were everywhere. And so I think when you see that many of one thing in one place, and then you add on to that these things have such a, scary history to them, or just, that knee-jerk reaction when people see them, it's pretty interesting. And so I think in the beginning it was my friends and family just seeing the number of them. Now, looking back, all those people who were freaked out or thought it was kind of nuts when I was doing it are now, my biggest fans and supporters. My family is now very much behind it. When they've seen that, working together and kind of collaborating with so many different people, you really get results. I mean, when we first started, we didn't know who really came up with the idea behind Ouija or the talking board, and how the Ouija board came about, how it got its name, who were the people involved. We've tracked down all the family members. We've just really rewritten the history. And again, that's timing. Like living in a world where today you had some technical difficulties, but there was a time when none of this technology existed. And luckily for me, I started doing this in a time when we can collaborate across the globe. We have collectors all over the world, and if it wasn't for them sharing the boards that they have, the knowledge, the advertisements, we just wouldn't know anything. So just very lucky.
Robert, we're going to hop out for a break here at the bottom of the hour because I want to get everybody in the Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers chat room fixed up because of the little technical error at the top. So we're going to step out, give you a chance to listen to some commercials, and get your sound sorted out. We're talking with Robert Murch tonight. He is the world's foremost expert on the Ouija board. And we're going to get more into it right after this. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be right back.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Hi there. This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 Mediums and a Large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is Elizabeth Anglin, and on the last Monday of every month, I join Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's Cosmic Passport. We delve into everything from extraterrestrial contact to animal communication. It's a lot of fun, and every month it's something different and exciting. I would love it if you would join us. You can hear and learn from my experiences, and I'd like to know about yours as well. Cosmic Passport on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick Webster Small, and I'm here to bring you the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night, live at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. If you're looking for aliens and extraterrestrials, well, we've got them. Big and tall, short and small. You're bound to find what you're looking for, so join me on the Webster Phenomena right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Have you ever wondered about those weird and strange creatures people have reported throughout history? Do you wonder if those stories are real? Me too, and that's why I started Cryptopia.us. Hey, this is Rob Morphy, crypto historian. Join me once a month on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott, where we will get into the odd and bizarre reports, from the Dover demon to hairy hominids and everything in between. I will break down what people like you and me are seeing at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost?
Look no further than Spaced Out Radio.
SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click on to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on radio
or our website, including social media.
From commercial spots to banners, we have it all.
Check out our competitive pricing today.
Want to connect with us online? Find us on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show, on Twitter, @Spaced Out Radio, on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, on YouTube, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. All right, space travelers, here comes the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio. Welcome back to the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio. What happened earlier with our technical problems at the top of the hour was I had lost all sound on the board. There was no sound getting in, so I had to reboot my entire system. And once we got the entire system through and rebooted, we are up and running. So I know some of you are having some problems getting into the system right now. If you can hear this, what you want to do is you want to refresh your SOR Spreaker link. And if you're in the SOR Space Travelers room, you're at Euphoria Chronicles, just redo the link and reboot it, and you'll be just fine. You can also attend with us in the SOR chat room. If you're listening on SHR Media, do the same thing. Just reboot the link, and everything will be just fine. Tomorrow night on the show, we are going back into the ET world. It's the first Friday of the month, which means our Keith Andrews will be back with us talking extraterrestrials and how he got involved with all of these weird, strange creatures from the other world. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. On YouTube, where we hide our archives, you can go and subscribe to our channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we are talking with Robert Murch. He is literally the greatest historian probably ever, and Robert, I will use that term if you don't mind, but the greatest historian ever when it comes to the Ouija board, the history of it. He's a historian. He's going to tell us all about it. Robert, this is like an addiction, much like this show is an addiction to me. And in the first half hour, or the first 15 minutes when we finally got the thing straightened out technically, you were telling us about how you got involved with the Ouija, how you got really addicted to it because you wanted to make it a passion. I would love for you to explain the history of the Ouija board, pre-20th century, if you don't mind, until we got up to the point where it was deemed evil.
Sure. Well, I mean, what's interesting is there's always been a segment of the population that is, vilifies or makes it bad. Anyone who was like a witch, or who was someone who saw the future, or, who practiced communing with the dead. In some cultures, those people are very important, and in other cultures, Judeo-Christian, they get often vilified. And, and there's many reasons for it. One of the most obvious is just trying to split the power. Like if in a Judeo-Christian religion, you're supposed to go through someone else to talk to God, but now you've got this connection that's helping you kind of directly, it's a little threatening. But as we kind of get into modern times, we move into, 1848 is really the birth of modern spiritualism for Western culture. And once that starts, these girls, these Fox sisters are saying that they're talking to a spirit, they're communing, and they start using tools like pointing to cards, and there would be a knock when they would hit the right letter. And so, that's really the beginning of talking boards, right? Like you're pointing to a letter and something's telling you that that's the letter. And so what's really interesting is all of these different spirit communication devices were coming out, and they were very close to the Ouija board, but talking boards are the way we see them today, with a little movable table called the planchette that sits on the board, that slides around, stops on letters and words, and spells out the message. That really doesn't pop out until about 1886 in the way we see it today. And then 4 years later, Ouija is named in Baltimore, and the Ouija board is first manufactured there. And so for 125 years, Ouija as a brand and as kind of the king of all talking boards really dominates. And, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of other talking boards. So many other companies wanted to cash in on this, and they made them. I mean, there many of them are in our collections. There were many other boards, made, and all of them tend to reflect or show us what was seen as mystical in the decade that they were made. So it's really kind of fun to watch. So for people who are into art or who are into symbols or symbology, if they're really into what people saw as mystical, you can look at these boards as kind of a walk through time and see what we related to. It's really neat as you get into when horoscopes were getting big in the zodiac. You start to see them creep into the boards. And, I just did a post recently on a board it's kind of unique. It's 1933, and it's using real early time to pull in the zodiac and different things. And another board I just did from the 70s dealt with past lives. You would use the board to scan and get in touch with your past lives. So talking boards are really cool because they really touch on all of the themes that are, again, seen as interesting or mystical at the time.
At what point did religious leaders start to speak out about this, Robert, where they deemed this evil, they deemed it as satanic, demonic, or whatever adjective you want to use? Because previous to then, everybody from priests up into the poor people, the richer hierarchy, royalty, was using this board to communicate with the other side. And then all of a sudden, we hit the 20th century, and boom, it's evil.
Well, it's always funny because I think the church, different members of the church would speak out against it. Anytime there's a fad and you see, hundreds of thousands of people using something and getting, so caught up that different newspapers are having Ouija editors to just answer all these questions people are having. And when Ouija does its fads, like in the beginning, so 1890s, early 1900s, and then you get into the 1920s and the 1940s and the 1960s and 70s, and again today. Every time that happens, the religious world tends to speak out. And, here's a funny story. So this is according to the Fylths. The Fylths made the Ouija board from 1890. He was one of the first stockholders and employees of the original company, took it over. His family sold it to Parker Brothers in 1966. And his son, who sold it, told me this story that I asked him kind of like, well, was it a little tough? You're making these boards. Your mother was Catholic. Your father was Presbyterian. And he said, well, in the 1920s, when William Fylth was making $3 million a year, that's just a staggering amount of money off these boards, that the church his wife was going to, who was Catholic, they started talking about these things are evil, these things are bad. And so he went and met with his wife's priest. And, the priest asked him, do you think these things talk to the dead, and do you think they're evil? And he's, no, they're just, it's entertainment, just for fun. And he asked, do you want me to stop making them? And they said, well, no, as long as you believe that they're not meant to, do anything bad and to talk to the dead. If you believe it's just an amusement, that's fine. But if you were to make donations to the church, no, it couldn't hurt. So the Fylth family did make donations all those years until 1966. And then it's funny, kind of ironically, after they sell out and stop making the Ouija board, the church comes out pretty hard because they stop making donations. So I don't know if that's really, true. That's just a family story they told me. But I think the church always comes out against things that become, again, independently popular. So if people are turning to the Ouija board for answers instead of turning to their faith, to God, to whatever, then, there's a problem.
I fully agree with you because religion always seems to get in the way of when it is something about the Ouija board, whether it's something, Robert, in regards to extraterrestrials, in regards to anything that doesn't believe the line. And I'm not saying religion is bad or religion is the big problem here, but on the flip side, it does come down to matter of opinion. And if you have a cleric who's saying it's bad, the congregation's going to follow that. If you have someone who's saying it's okay to use it, they're going to follow that as well. So really, it's about the head who is speaking about it, is it not?
Yeah, I think, it is. The thing that happens with the Ouija board that's always funny, too, is the more people who say not to use it, the bigger it gets. So, in 1973, when The Exorcist comes out, there's this big, really, that's a real good reason not to use the Ouija board, right? Possession. And what happens to Ouija board sales? They go through the roof. So the minute you're told not to play with something, the minute you're told it's dangerous, the minute you're told you shouldn't do it, what does everyone do? They go out and do it. So there's a love-hate relationship for the Ouija board and the church coming out against it because it only helps sales. Just think about it. When you were a kid, the minute I was told not to do something, that's exactly what I wanted to go and do. It was like, okay, perfect. This is bad. Let's do it. So,
for sure.
I think it's an interesting thing. I know that's not the intent of the church to sell more, but every time they come out against it, it only helps.
Right. When you look at it, how many boards do you actually own now? Because last time I talked to you, you were trying to pare down.
Yeah. Again, it's interesting. I have over 500 different boards, but I don't consider different variations of those boards different boards. So they change over time. So, if you really get into it and you're like nitpicky, you're getting into the thousands. And I don't just collect talking boards. I collect everything about them. So that's sheet music, TV shows, movies, That goes back to silent movies, articles, photographs, you name it, because ultimately where I'm really fascinated in what I hope that the TBHS has been successful doing, that's the Talking Board Historical Society, is that we can present this very controversial subject, and a subject like death that really affects everybody, in a real interesting historical way, so that we can see how people viewed these talking boards in a different time. Because like you brought up a few times, today they're often seen as, the devil's doorway, something evil. But for most people, I think we forget why people pick up the Ouija board in the first place. And in our Talking Board Historical Society, we've actually had a few reminders. A few of the directors have lost family members recently, and it's a real, stab in the heart. It's a real reminder for us. Why do people pick up a board in the first place? Well, it's because they miss someone they love. It's because they never got a chance to say goodbye. Maybe the last thing they said was horrible to the person, and they never got to say they're sorry. Who knows? There's a million reasons why. But it's because death, they say the only two things certain in life is death and taxes, and that is really, really true. And so even though life has changed, technology has changed, all this stuff we're still very basic human beings who deal with loss not very well, who wants to say goodbye forever. That's a really big thing that something so simple as a Ouija board really tackles.
And I agree with you, because in the end, the one thing that is guaranteed in life is death. We all have a timeline. We all have a date on when we are set to expire. And when you look at it, people just want to know. I mean, they don't want to be thinking that I'm one and done. They want to know that there is afterlife. They want to know that you are all right on the other side, whether it's by chatting with loved ones or friends who've moved over. And some people use it for straight entertainment. But let's face it, there has been a dark side to it. Never mind what Hollywood has shown us, but people around the world, and I'll give you an example. One of my every night listeners, Gail, she had a bad experience when she was younger, and to this day, the Ouija board freaks her out so bad she couldn't even tune into this show. She's like, Dave, I just can't do it. It scares me too much. What about people who are having these negative experiences?
Well, I mean, I think it's like anything else, right? So, if you think of, so I just told you that William Fylth in 1921, I believe it was, made $3 million and ended up, he grossed $3 million in profit because the other $2 million went into building his new factory and stuff. But if you think of and let's give you a number to just put it into perspective. From 1967 to 2004, I believe, 13 million Ouija boards were made. 13 million. So now that's just, again, 1967 to 2004. So let's just think if we can apply those numbers to 1890 to today, how many Ouija boards were made? And if you're thinking, so now you're in the hundreds of millions, how many bad stories have you really heard? So none that compare. I mean, you're talking, it actually becomes a statistical error. And it doesn't mean that those experiences are not true. It doesn't mean that bad things don't happen. It just means that they're actually incredibly small compared to how many people are actually playing and buying these boards. And for those people who are having bad experience, there's a million reasons why they might be having a bad experience. Maybe I tend to believe it's a very simple answer, and that's just in life, right? Like, say you wake up and you just have one of those days where you get up, you go to put something on, it tears, or you dump your coffee, or you trip, and your day just gets worse and worse and worse. If that's the kind of day you're having and you're not in a good place, trying to commune with the other side is probably a bad idea. Like attracts like. It happens just in the real physical world, right? Like the friends we end up having, the people we end up putting around us, we hope they're people who make you better people, not people who bring out the worst in you. So I think with boards and people have bad experiences, they may be attracting, or for whatever reason, they're getting something bad. But I think, people forget there's a real simple way out of this, and that's if you start to have a bad experience, you're playing it, something scares you, there's a goodbye at the bottom of every board. And, it's put there for a reason. And you hang up. Like, you get something you don't like, you stop playing it for a while. And scary is another thing. Like, what's scary to some people isn't necessarily scary to me. Some people just get freaked out the minute it moves, and that is a bad experience for them. Other people, like at WouijaCon, we had a group of girls who asked me a question that came up many years before, and I always it always makes me smile. But they cornered me, and they were like, Murch, this is really scary. We're going to tell you the story. It really freaked us out, but we played the Ouija board, and it told us when and how we were going to die. It really freaked us out. And so I said, well, that's really specific. Like, what were you asking the board when it told you that? And they kind of looked at each other and said, well, we asked the board, how and when we were going to die. And I started, laughed, and I said, well, I think that's part of the other problem is asking the board questions that you really want answers to. My mom always taught me, don't ask anything you don't want to hear. And it's the same thing with the Ouija board, right? Like, it's all intent, what you tend to use it for. And I make a joke, but I tell people, if you're going to ask the Ouija board anything, do what I do. Go for the lottery numbers. Like, the lottery's getting up there again. I want the numbers. I don't want to know all this other stuff. So I think being careful about what you ask is really important. And again, taking things for what they're worth. I think fate, all these things, there's so many things that are involved that just because the Ouija board told you that something was going to happen doesn't necessarily make it true.
Well, I tried the lottery numbers one time. I didn't even bring it up. It brought it up to me and said that on such and such a date, the lottery was going to be $43 million. It told me that it was going to be carried over for 6 weeks, told me where I should buy my ticket. I followed absolutely everything. Went on the board, forgot about my ticket, forgot it was the lottery night, went on the board with some friends. The board says, well, who do you want to talk to? It pointed to me, and it spells out congratulations. And I went, oh, God, I forgot to check my lottery ticket. And I didn't have a single number. I was so pissed off, man. I don't think I've been that angry at anything in a long time, where the spirit on the other side was messing with my life. And you know what? I had a feeling that was going to happen, but there's still the letdown that comes along with it. But people do have nightmares about it. I want to get to a question here from Francesca in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. She is asking, Robert, are you trying to remove the stigma, for the Ouija board? Because she has an angel board, which functions the same way, but she feels safer, and it has totally different information on it. Is it the board, or the intention of the user, or the naivety of the user not blocking bad things coming through?
Well, it can be all of those things. I mean, the wonderful thing about the artwork on these boards, and that's awesome that she has an angel board. Actually, Terry, one of our collectors, and she's in the collectors group, that might be her board that she did. There are a few angel boards released, but the difference between an angel board was the clear intention was to talk to your guardian angel, or to talk to angels, things that were good as opposed to negative energies. And I personally think it's all belief. I think belief is incredibly important. What you believe is 9/10 of your reality. So if you don't believe in ghosts, if you don't believe in them at all, and you just think it's a bunch of hogwash, and you think when you die, guess who never has a ghost experience? The person who doesn't believe in them. Like, if you really don't believe in them, none of this, you're like, yeah, right, I heard the sound. Yeah, I know it's because it's an old house. There's always a rational reason for them that why these things happen. Why does a Ouija board? Oh, it's your subconscious, so it's never a ghost. So I really think it's what you believe. So if you believe that you're in control, that you're in charge, and that you are only going to talk to positive things, that's your experience. But if you end up having a really bad experience, like if, and you're nervous about them and that's when you go to play them in a bad way because you're scared, well, guess what happens to you? You end up having that really bad experience. So I think, if the look of the board, the design of the board, the intent of the board puts you in a better place and you feel safer, then awesome. You should definitely use that. But as far as personally, what am I doing? Am I trying to remove the stigma? No. I mean, I think I don't want to demystify the mystifying oracle. I just really want to kind of investigate it and, talk about it historically so that people have a real educated view of it instead of just what their friend told them or what they saw on television.
We got one more question for you before we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour, and this comes from Joe in the SOR Space Travelers chat room on Facebook. Question about the planchette. Which works better, the old wooden ones or the modern plastic style?
Well, it depends on you. So if you're drawn to the old vintage things and you believe that if it's older and it's been around longer, it works better, that's what's going to work better for you. If you're a belief that no one else can touch it because their energies affect the board itself or taint it, then you want a brand new one. That's going to be plastic. Remember these things in back before 1890 and 1886, they were homemade. These things were just made. So you can make a Ouija board out of anything. Use a shot glass, flip it over, use a regular glass. Pens and paper, whatever. You can do this at home, and it will all work equally as well as long as that's what calls to you. So I do believe that how the board looks, the particular board, the surroundings, setting the ambiance, using the Ouija board at like noontime outside with the bright sun, being like, hey, is there anyone here? You're probably likely going to have less results than if you wait till it's night and you light some candles and you get in the mood. And maybe all of those things do nothing more than open something in your brain to allow you to make contact with something, whether that's your subconscious, whether that's something other than you. That's the great debate.
We are talking with Robert Murch tonight on Spaced Out Radio. He is probably the top historian of the Ouija board in the world. We're glad to have him on Spaced Out Radio. His website, robertmurch.com. We're going to take a break here at the top of the hour. When we come back, more of your questions and more learning about the history and the ability of the Ouija board. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be right back.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where two members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio on the Spreaker.com network.
Do you believe you've been in contact with extraterrestrials? Have you seen the Greys, the Mantis, or the Reptilians? I am Samantha Mullet, and on the second Tuesday of each month, you can listen and learn from my experiences with off-worlders on Spaced Out Radio's The ET Experience. With host Dave Scott, we'll sit down and chat about what's going on with our friends from other worlds. We'll also try to answer your questions, so please tune in on the second Tuesday of the month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
Right here, this is where we divulge the fruit of our research. Here on the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on Spaced Out Radio. And we give it up to you guys, all the listeners and the live listeners. You usually get something special and hang out in the chat room. And we love to have you. So we'll see you every Saturday night at 8 p.m. You know where.
If you're a fan of social media, you can follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel, where our archives are stored, is Spaced Out Radio Show. And of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. Welcome back for the second hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Tomorrow night on the show, our Keith Andrews is back as we get in touch with our alien side with the man who has been in touch with 25 different ET species. That is tomorrow night on the show. We're going to find out tomorrow about how this happened to him. It's going to be interesting. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. On YouTube, where we hide our archives, you can go there and listen to Spaced Out Radio Show. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we are talking Ouija board with the legend himself, Robert Murch. He is the historian when it comes to the Ouija board. Robert's website is robertmurch.com. Nice and simple. Robert, welcome back.
Thank you so much. And you know, for other people, you're so nice to push my website, but, you know, people should really check out the Talking Board Historical Society because, you know, as much as I know, again, most of that is with collaborations from other people. And the Talking Board Historical Society has an amazing cast of characters on its board of directors. And you can find us on Facebook. If you look up Talking Board Historical Society, we post every day about kind of something unique and different. Different board directors take turns. We're made up of historians, collectors, artists, you name it. We try to cover every angle we can. So it's pretty cool. And learn about the other people. I'm not the only one. I tend to be, I've been around maybe the longest and the loudest, but there's lots of other people.
Awesome. How many other people are involved in this group?
In the Talking Board Historical Society, we have, I believe, 11 board members total. So, but later this year, right now we're working on, and Allie Ruff is pushing this hard. This is her project, and I've been dragging my feet, redoing our website so we can add a lot of interesting content. And she covers social media as well. So as we redo our website, and Ouija 2, the second movie is coming out at the end of October, we'd really like to have the new website up so we can show people and open it up to general membership. So anyone who's interested in supporting kind of our quest for learning Ouija board history and seeing how it applies to people will be able to make donations in the form of, you know, membership.
I have some more questions here in regards to the Ouija board from our listeners. I'm going to go to Eric in the Spaced Out Radio chat room right now. He is asking, Robert, do you only use a planchette or do you use a pendulum with the boards? And do you buy them or do you make your own?
Mostly, so I've used all of them, and going to these conferences, all over, the greatest part about going to a paranormal conference for anyone who hasn't gone is you get to meet really cool people who might have entirely different views, but everyone wants the same thing. We all want this thing to work. So people bring, their homemade, the board they believe works the best, and I've had the, amazing opportunity to try lots of stuff. And to me, they brand new, bought, really old, homemade. I've had equal success on all of them. I haven't had one that's been, the board that is like the go-to one, the one that works well. I'm drawn to the oldest ones because they tell the story of the beginning of these things. But the artwork on these things can be so amazing. So I guess maybe the question is, does what makes a Ouija board work also make these other devices like a pendulum work? And, the answer is scientists will say yes, and people who believe in spirits will say yes. Again, scientists believe that what's happening is something called ideomotor effect, and that's the combination of the small movements in your hands and your subconscious. And so scientists believe when you play the Ouija board or any of these devices that you are physically touching, that it is your subconscious that's answering the question. You don't know it, you don't believe it, you don't feel it, you don't see it, you totally think it's something else, but it's you. That's what scientists believe. And then there are people who clearly believe that what they're talking to is something other than them and the players that are at these things. Hello?
Robert, Corrine in the SOR Space Travelers room has a question. She is asking, should she believe what the board told her when she was 13 about when she was going to die?
I don't know if she's ever seen the movie Final Destination, but there is a belief that like you had said, that we have an expiration date on ourselves. I believe we all expire. How and when that happens is a series of a million choices that are not just yours, but other people around you. The person who didn't get enough sleep when they're driving and you happen to be in a rush and you have your earbuds in and you cross the road and you don't hear him, he doesn't see you. Is all that destiny or fate? Maybe. So should you believe it? I don't know. If you asked the Ouija board 10 things and 9 of them came absolutely true, I might pay attention to it. But I truly believe that fate is ours to be made and to be broken. And so what the Ouija board told you might have been the truth at the time you asked it. But your life has gone in a million different directions since that happened. I'm not sure how old you are now, how many years have passed, but just think of all the choices and the changes you've made in your life since that happened. Was the Ouija board able to foretell all of those things? It's another belief system, right? Why is it that people believe that when you die, you become omniscient, that suddenly you can tell the future, that you can know things you didn't know before? What if you're a ghost and you just stay exactly you only know what you knew before? Mm-hmm. What if that's what it's like? And so I don't know. I mean, those are the great questions. Can the Ouija board, if it's being driven by its own oracle, that it's its own intelligence, or if you're talking to something other than your subconscious and it's a spirit, could those things possibly know what's going to happen to you in the future? I don't know. Mm-hmm. That's what makes it really scary. I mean, why do we play the Ouija board if you don't believe it works? Everyone does. Someone will pull it out. Oh, come on. Someone will say, oh, this is, bull. This is just like a waste of time. But they'll still put their hands on the planchette. And that's because, what if it really works this time? What if somehow this time it really does put you in touch with something? And I think that's the catch. That's the thing. What if it really works? And that's why this simple thing that has existed in a time, before electricity, now is still, like when the Ouija movie came out, in 2014, the Ouija board that Christmas was one of the top 5 games sold in the United States. That's pretty amazing for something that's 125 years old when its competition is iPhone apps and iPads and tablets.
But is it a game, though? Because for a lot of people, they use it as a majestic way to communicate with the other side. Other people are sitting around getting drunk on Heineken, eating a donut, and saying, hey, let's conjure up Satan. You know what I'm saying? There's so many differentials to it.
Yes, you're right, and you just kind of answered the success of Ouija itself. So before Ouija, these different talking boards, and one of which was a company right up the road from me in Massachusetts, in Leominster, called the W.S. Reed Toy Company. They made what they called a witch board, and they sent it to President Grover Cleveland because he was a new president and he was getting married. And his friend who ran this company thought it would be hilariously funny to tell this guy, you just got married, you're the new president, you're really going to need one of these. He publishes the letter to his friend, the president, and the president receives this. There was a witch board in the White House in 1886. Pretty amazing that we were able to uncover this. And it went there. And the president writes back kind of a funny retort, which is, oh, this is really great, this is wonderful, I accept it as friendship, but I doubt I'll be testing its powers of past, present, and future anytime soon. So we don't know if they used it or not. But the beauty of Ouija versus the other talking boards that were made was they purposely didn't tell you why it worked. All these other talking boards were marketed specifically as talking to the other side. But the brilliancy behind Ouija was they realized that there was only a segment of the population who believed that you could talk to spirits. But everyone wants to sit down and talk to the unknown. It's a mystery. It's a puzzle. It's a game. So is it psychic powers? Is it the spirits that you're talking to? Is it your subconscious? It's all of those things. We're not going to tell you. You play it and you figure it out. And that's what makes Ouija so different than every other talking board, is it's been able to fit in all of those things. So when they first started making Ouija, suddenly every household that bought it could have their own seance, whereas before you might have had to hire someone or pay a medium to put you in touch. Well, suddenly you could have this kind of mini, psychic, spiritual experience right in your own home without having to leave. And you could do it over and over and over again. So you just said, is it a game? It's all of those things. The Ouija board is everything you want it to be. In fact, we've had this discussion many, many times. And one of my really good friends and mentors, Gene Orlando from the Museum of Talking Boards, great website. If you guys want to see some killer talking boards, he has some great galleries. That's museumoftalkingboards.com. He and I have had this discussion over this 20-something years that the Ouija board and talking boards are really just mirrors. And they really just reflect you and what's inside of you, what you bring out, what you want to contact, what's inside of you. And that's the beauty of these things and why they're still, again, so popular 125 years later.
June has a question in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. Can the Ouija board work only if one person has its fingers on it?
Yes. It definitely can. Why is it that people, I guess the next question would be, why is it that we're told never play the Ouija board alone? And so Kevin Tenney, an amazing man who wrote and directed Witchboard, came out in 1985, 1986 in some theaters, wrote about something called progressive entrapment. And that was what we call a Ouija-stition. It was something that he came up with to drive the plot. And that was, if you play the Ouija board alone, you don't have enough spiritual or psychic powers to ward off evil possession. And that if you use it alone, you're opening yourself up to this progressive entrapment. Now, where did he get that idea? Well, that comes from 1973's movie The Exorcist, where even though the Ouija board plays an incredibly teeny-weeny 2-minute part of the entire movie, what happens is this girl in the movie, based on a real story, plays the Ouija board alone. She becomes possessed. Well, there you have it. But can the Ouija board work by itself, by one person doing it? Yes. The problem is it's hard. And I can tell anyone who wants to play the board, and practice makes perfect. The more people who are playing it, the more people who put their fingers on it, the better it works out of the gate. And so if you really want to get this down and you really want to, practice this and you really want to get good at it, start with 4 to 5 people. And then start peeling people away. And it makes a huge difference who you play with. Like, you might think, oh my God, I want to play with my best friend. I totally trust them. They're wonderful. They're amazing. The thing never moves. It really is a combination of who's at the board. Now, once you get good at it and you're used to letting your hands move, because honestly, the worst thing that happens, and I've seen it a million times, people get so nervous and they really want to see if it's really working, that they push the thing so hard that there's no way it's going to move. Like, it can't move. You're smashing it. And so it's really tough to find the right, how lightly do you put it so that you can feel like you're not pushing it, but you're not pushing it so hard that there's no way it was going to move, even if it wanted to. So, you can do it by yourself. It takes a lot of practice. And remember, there are mediums who believe they can talk to the spirit world without using any tool. So the same applies here.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I'm very interested in, Robert, is we see a lot of people now, if we look forward to today's technology, the Ouija board gets a bad rap. People saying it's demonic, it's only conjuring up anything that is evil, stay away from it. Yet we see people going to mediums on a daily basis, as you said, people using crystal balls, people using dowsing, people using pendulums. Like, for instance, I have a pendulum within reach of my hand right now. It works well for me. Okay? And now we take it up a notch. People using ghost boxes in order to communicate through radio signal. What's the difference between what people are using today and the difference between that and the Ouija board?
Well, so to me, there's no difference. An interesting thing that this conversation comes up many, many times, and a funny story. I don't know if I told it last time, but you and your listeners might know someone named Jeff Belanger. He's probably the funniest person in the paranormal community ever. But I was with him, and he actually got me my first gig many, many moons ago, speaking at a Ghost Hunters, the TV show Beyond Reality Events. And when I first went, I was only allowed to come speak, and then I had to leave, because people were so freaked out by Ouija boards that even the thought of having someone who's surrounded by them could be a bad thing. And then the next year I was allowed to kind of stay. The next year I was allowed to bring boards with me, but we couldn't play, and we finally could. But, we were sitting there and we were doing an investigation, and Jason Hawes was telling people kind of like, I don't like Ouija boards. I think they're bad. I think only bad things come about them. It's kind of all of our investigations end up because someone played the Ouija board. And, I'm sitting in the back trying to be polite, not rolling my eyes. And he starts doing this investigation. We're in the dark, and he starts asking, puts out his K2 meter and his EVP recorders, and he says, is there anyone here? Does anyone have a message for us? Were you killed here? Are you a boy or a girl? And Jeff Belanger elbows me and goes, isn't this a Ouija board session? Like, what's the difference? That the K2 meter blinks to answer you? And so some people will say, well, you're not touching the K2 meter, right? Like, you can put the K2 meter down. And my answer to that is, again, we don't really know the rules here. Like, Casper the Friendly Ghost did not come down and say, use a K2 meter, you're safe. Use a Ouija board, you're screwed. Like, I got you. Some people believe that if you're touching it, the spirit is coming through you, and it's using your energy. And okay, there's no proof to that. There's absolutely no proof to that. But that's what people believe. Okay, so again, it comes down to belief. If you believe that the Ouija board is dangerous and that you are more likely to get in trouble with it, guess what? You will. If you believe that the K2 meter is a safer way to investigate, you're probably going to have a better experience with the K2 meter. But just remember, if something you can't see is making something across the room blink, it also can pick that thing up and check it at your head. It just didn't. So I am of the sense that anytime you call out, anytime you conjure, anytime you're asking to make communication, you are potentially putting yourself in danger. And I'm not saying it is dangerous. It's just that you're dealing with the unknown. We don't know what's going to answer. And psychologists would say that doing this is equally dangerous because what you're doing is you're pulling bricks out of your subconscious. Your subconscious was built to protect you and so that you could focus on something and stay alive, that you didn't get so wrapped up in everything that was happening that you could actually focus on keeping yourself, present. And so poking around in your subconscious is not always such a super safe thing, especially if you have any type of mental illness or any issues that you're going through. We project all of our crap all the time. And so to me, in all my years of investigating, I have never seen a situation of which a Ouija board was any more dangerous than any of the tools that we use. But that's for debate. Again, that's just my belief. It's funny though because it's a belief that a lot of people talk about the Warrens, right? Like we've all heard about them before. And Lorraine Warren, kind of grandmother of the paranormal and investigations, she hates Ouija boards. I love Ouija boards. Her and I did like a 6-hour interview with her for a documentary that I was working on the Ouija board. And I've known her many, many years. And it's funny because we really agreed on this one point, that no device is any more or less dangerous, that the act of conjuring and trying to call something to you is where there's potentially danger. What's really cool and unique about the Ouija board is if you're investigating a haunting, if you're on an investigation and you're using EVP recorders and K2 meters and say something scares the living bejesus out of you, you don't blame the K2 meter or the EVP recorder. But if you have a bad experience using the Ouija board, we project that onto the Ouija board. We give the Ouija board power. We give no other spirit communication tool. None. The Ouija board is bad. The Ouija board is the portal. You've got to get the Ouija board out of the house. The spirit is attached to the Ouija board. You never hear someone being like, oh my God, John Zaffis, can you take my K2 meter away? There's something attached to it. It just doesn't happen. But we do this to the Ouija board. We have all of these Ouija stitions, like don't play it alone, don't bury it, don't burn it. Like if you try to get rid of it, it shows back up. It's one of the reasons the Ouija board is so popular, but also the reason why so many people believe there's negativity attached to it, because we give it a life and a power that no other spirit communication tool has ever been given.
Eric has a question in the SOR Space Travelers. He's a frequent user of the Ouija board himself. He's asking, Robert, what do you believe? Do you use them regularly, or are you more collect and research?
Well, I'm always collecting research, but you can't go to these conferences and speak about it without using it. I would be the worst historian ever if I didn't try to play them at any chance I could get. And for a long time I didn't. Again, back to my friend Gene Orlando really teasing me for, the first 10 years of not really sitting down and playing a lot. Now I try to get as many people as we can. We try to get the different people who make the Ouija board, Hasbro, Winning Moves, USAopoly, TCG Toys in Canada. We try to get them to donate boards to these different paranormal things. And, when I was in Australia a couple of years ago, we had 80 people playing at once. So, I try to play every chance I can get, especially with different people, because the results are always different. And, sometimes it's real fast. Sometimes it takes a while to warm up. And I believe that if spirit communication is possible, then why wouldn't a Ouija board work? But the real question isn't, does the Ouija board work? The real question is spirit communication possible, period? Because if it's possible, then again, we don't understand, who decided that K2 meters really work? K2 meters read, electromagnetic fields. But there's no proof that electromagnetic fields have anything to do with ghosts. This is just something that we've come to believe, or people have noticed. Well, this weird experience happens when there seems to be a change in these electromagnetic fields. That doesn't mean it's a ghost. So again, we are no closer to solving the answer to what happens after you die than the cavemans were when they realized that the person that was next to them 1 minute was now dead. Well, where did they go? Mm-hmm. We're still in the same place. It's the best part of this journey is that we go on these investigations, and the first thing I tell everyone is we are not going to solve the mystery tonight, but we're going to have a ton of fun trying to experience it and trying to see what we can do and what do we notice and what happens. Because again, like you said, we're all going to die. And what happens when you sit down at the Ouija board is, whether you know it or not, when you sit at the Ouija board, you are entertaining the thought that one day you're going to be on the other side of that board. What happens to you? So as much as we can say, well, I want to know what happened to this relative, I want to, I need to say I'm sorry, I need to tell them I love them. Ultimately, the most important thing to most people is themselves. What's going to happen to me? And that is the question that's been asked since the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm. That's why I love having you on, man. You give answers like that. We only got a minute to go here before we go to break. I'm going to try and squeeze in another question here before we pop out. Joe is asking in the SOR Space Travelers, Robert, have you ever done a Ouija session or been a part of one where the planchette moved without anybody touching it?
Okay, so I have not ever seen or experienced that, but I've heard it. And again, what can that be? I also, there have been many experiences on people creating ghosts. So is it possible that ghosts or spirits are nothing more than our actual brain's influence in the physical world, meaning that your thoughts can change things? Telekinesis. Is it that you moved the planchette in your head, that you created the ghost you were talking to, or demon, or anything else, and that it actually exists because you thought of it? So to me, that's just as fascinating as Aunt Sally came back to tell me where, the missing ring was. I like to explore all of that. So I've never seen it or experienced it. I've heard it. My thoughts on that are, I totally want to experience it. I mean, every time I play the Ouija board, I want one of those things to happen that you hear other people say happened. It's never happened to me. We have really tried to be somewhat scientific. I'm not a scientist, so we've never done a clinical study on this. At OuijaCon last year, we did have some people who actually did really do some really interesting work on where you're looking and what's going on with your eyes when you play the Ouija board. And so that work, I don't think we've heard what the results of that study was yet, but I am interested to hear that. But I've never experienced it, and I totally want to.
Wonderful. Robert, I'm going to put you on hold here for the bottom of the hour break. We're going to step out for a quick one as we are talking about Ouija boards with Robert Murch. His website, robertmurch.com, if you want to check it out. He has over 500 Ouija boards, and they are from all across time. The older, the better. He loves them. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back after this.
Have you ever had an extraterrestrial experience? One you just couldn't explain? Well, maybe I can help. Hello, I am Samantha Mullet. On the second Tuesday of each month, I will join Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio to bring a human aspect to ET contact. It's something I've lived with my entire life, and I'd love to help you understand. Let's share our experiences. The ET Experience, the second Tuesday of each month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Fairies? Bigfoot? Dogmen? Trolls? Goblins? Hey, if it's cryptid in any way, I'm looking into it. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, also known as Spaced Out Radio's Crypto Guru. Join me every second Wednesday of the month on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott, where we will talk about the stories people call tall tales. I will fill you in on the latest sightings and the hidden histories that are causing quite a stir. You can find everything at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Rivulet Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrndr.wix.com/rivuletrndr, or my Facebook page, Rivulet R&R, to set up an appointment for relaxation, Reiki, or readings, no matter where you are. It's time for you to make time for you.
Would you like to expand your clientele? Have you ever thought of online radio advertising? Check out spacedoutradio.com to get your name out there. Our listeners support those who advertise with us, so why not give it a try? We have the most competitive advertising prices out there. Just click on the advertising tab on spacedoutradio.com and contact us today.
Are you an ET experiencer, but you just don't know what's going on? Are you too timid or shy to discuss it with anyone? Maybe I can help. Join me, R. Keith Andrews, the first Friday of every month on Spaced Out Radio, and I will help you to find the answers you're looking for. Together, I will help you understand the off-worlders and the true meanings behind your experiences. All you have to do is join us in the Spaced Out Radio chat room. See you there.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Do you have a topic or a guest that you'd like to hear on Spaced Out Radio? Let us know at spacedoutradio.com, where you can sign up to become a Space Traveler member today. Or you can find us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Always a pleasure to have you with us. And thank you if you're listening in on the SHR Media Network and Paranormal Forum, Spaced Out Radio's chat room on Spreaker, SOR Space Travelers, or on Euphoria Chronicles. We appreciate you taking part in tonight's show. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, we can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel, where we hide our archives, is Spaced Out Radio Show. Make sure you click on the subscribe button for that. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we are talking with Ouija board historian Robert Murch. He has over 500 boards himself. He talks all around North America every year, talking about the Ouija board, how it works. He is an expert. No, it's not all about demons and Satan, that's for sure. Robert, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Eugene has a question in the Spaced Out Radio chat room. There's a lot of people who are intuitive who use the Ouija board, not only their own instincts. So he is asking, have you ever had any psychic experiences?
Oh, I've had a few experiences, especially when I was younger, where I've had psychic experiences where I thought there might be something there, like something else other than me and the other people. And I think that's probably what draws me to the Ouija board, right? That it's something so simple that can put you in touch with that. I've never had an experience that's been definitive. You know, like anyone who has an experience of any kind, it's very definitive when it happens. And about 15 minutes afterwards, you start to think of all the rational reasons why whatever happened that it might not have been. But it still sticks with you that this might be something more. And I think that's the beauty of the board.
Do you believe, though, that everybody should use this as a tool to communicate, or should people who are in the know of what is right and what is wrong should use it? Because in the end, Robert, when you get, say, a bunch of drunk teenagers sitting around on a Friday night at a party using the Ouija board, and they're like, hey, let's conjure up Beelzebub, you don't want that happening because it can open doors, it can open portals. But on the flip side, if you're serious about it, like you said, and you want open, honest communication, you have to be in the right state of mind.
Yes. I think, what makes the Ouija board, why there's so many bad experiences, is it's often a person's first experience with the paranormal. It's because the Ouija board sold as a game, and it's been continuously sold in toy stores for 125 years, that, it's a young person's first on-purpose encounter with the paranormal. Like, not like I heard something, I saw something, but I'm going to sit down and I'm going to attempt to make contact. And I think that sets it apart. So, of course, if you have young people, what do young people do? Like, you ask the questions that are, like, extreme and crazy and, scary. But that's also just part of life. I don't think... would I advise doing that? No. But is every kid going to do that who goes through it? Yes. Ouija boards are a rite of passage for our young people. Sleepovers, Bloody Mary, light as a feather, stiff as a board. These are all games that people are trying to explore the paranormal with. And are they going to ask really bad questions? Yeah, of course they are. That's what young people do. They do these things, they get scared. Is it possible they could get themselves into real trouble? Yes. Is it likely? No. Again, think of all the cases, and I particularly really track, murders that have been blamed on the Ouija board, or, people trying to hurt other people, or suicides. And again, the reported ones, the ones that make the news, the ones that, and of course, what makes the news, the extreme, the Ouija board told me to kill my daddy, so I did. It becomes such a small fraction of Ouija boards that are out there in use that it's kind of like putting cars on the road. If you put one car on the road, the only thing you have to worry about hitting is like trees or going off the road. But you put like 1 million cars on the road and you're going to start to have some accidents because people don't pay attention. And I think it's really what happens. But it doesn't matter what I tell everybody or what the facts are. The Ouija board is completely determined by belief. So again, if you believe these things are potentially dangerous, if you go into a session believing that it's going to tell you when you're going to die and that it can give you these answers and these are the things you should get, you're going to have a bad experience. If you really go into it as you would any investigation into the paranormal, with thought, with these are questions we're going to ask, these are questions we are not going to ask. I tell people a successful session is find a bunch of people that you're going to have fun with and that you trust and that are not going to push it on purpose. Again, could be ideomotor response, so you want to make sure that it's people who are not going to push it on purpose. But come up with 10 questions you're going to ask, because the thing that happens to most people when they sit down at the Ouija board is they freeze. Once that planchette starts moving and it really moves under their hands, it's like, oh my God, I can't think of anything now. I don't even know what to ask. So coming up with a list of questions, you have, say, 10 that you really want to ask, and then you get into the groove. Then you start to figure it out and what feels right to ask. But don't ask questions that are going to scare the pants off you or make you think about it 20 years afterwards. If you just not asked how I was going to die, well, I wouldn't have this horrible fear of the Ouija board, So, think about what you really want to know.
Joe has a question from the SOR Space Travelers chat room on Facebook, and he is asking a historical question for you, Robert. Where did the word Ouija come from?
Well, for a long time, including myself, we all believed that Ouija was the combination of the words oui and ja, the French and German words for yes. And that may be actually true, but what we found in digging this research, one of my favorite things that I was able to be part of kind of figuring out was there was a woman named Helen Peters, and she was really the mother of the Ouija board. And she was, Elijah Bond is the man who patents the Ouija board. And one night, they've got this board. Charles Kennard is the man who claims to invent it. And they're sitting in a place in Baltimore, and they're making this board that goes by a different name, probably a witch board. And they ask the board what it wants to be called. And Helen Peters is considered a medium by her brother-in-law, Elijah Bond. And with her kind of at the board, they ask the question, and it spells out Ouija. And when they ask what that means, it answers good luck. And so Ouija, the Egyptian luck board, was born. Why Egyptian? Well, in the 1890s, the early, or the end of the 1890s, what happens is all of these discoveries in the Valley of the Kings and in Egypt, what was seen as mystical to Americans was Egypt, right? So to them, Egyptian luck board. But Helen Peters, according to the story, the people who were there, she has a locket on. And on this locket is a figure of a woman with the word Ouija over it, Ouija. Well, how can a word that never existed in our language before have been in her locket? Who knows? Is it a misspelling? Was, did it really say Wisa? And it was short for Louisa? Who knows? There's a million theories. And we only know this story because Charles Kennard and Elijah Bond and some of the other people tell the story 30 years after the fact. So all we know is that the Ouija board, with Helen Peters' help, named itself. And actually, really cool thing, the Talking Board Historical Society, we worked with the mayor of Baltimore and the business, the 7-Eleven, that is actually in the original building that was a boarding house at the time, and there is now a plaque from the city and the Talking Board Historical Society that tells the story of how the Ouija board got named. So you can read the plaque while you grab a coffee and a Slurpee. It's perfect.
Do spirits have to be honest on the board? Because there's controversy about that.
Right. So again, are you really talking to spirits? First question. Second question is it telling, whatever question you get, is it telling you the truth? No. I mean, we just, like you said, you asked for the lottery numbers and you didn't even get one of them. Maybe you didn't ask for the lottery numbers for this week's lottery. You got maybe last week's. But, who knows, if it's telling you the truth. Again, the real questions come down to, is what you're talking to, does it have the ability to tell the future? Or to know what it's not there for? And those are questions people should be thinking about. The thing I urge everyone to do, again, comes back to that question, am I trying to dispel myths about the Ouija board? I'm just trying to get people to rationally think about something that evokes a very irrational fear.
Mm-hmm. I can understand that, but there's a lot of people who, if we put it on a personal level, say want to communicate with their dad because, like you said earlier, maybe it was a relationship that had gone sour and, they want to clear that up, or maybe they didn't get to say goodbye. How do you know then that you are actually truly talking to the spirit or whatever it is on the other side of the board that you're talking to?
I don't think you do. I think it's belief. I mean, how do you know ghosts exist? People will say, well, I've had proof. I took a picture and there's this thing in the photo. Okay, that's proof for you, but that's not proof. So how do you know who you're really talking to? Don't. You have to believe that who you're talking to, and maybe they give an answer that you believe only that person would have known, and that's good enough for you. I don't know. I mean, Harry Houdini, he died really going after all the people who were, all the charlatans that were out there, all the people who were, just making money off of people and faking seances. And, every year he promised that if he could come back from the dead and communicate, they would. Every year they pull out a Ouija board and try it, and he has not come back. No answer has been given that has convinced the people playing that it's really been him. But does that mean that, maybe he just moved on? Again, it really, the idea behind what's answering on the Ouija board really comes down to what you believe. Do you believe that ghosts exist? And why don't some ghosts move on? And, why are they just gone? I mean, think of all the millions and millions of people who've been alive on this earth. If everyone could talk to the Ouija board, you'd have a huge line. The Ouija board would be spelling out so much nonsense because everyone would be talking at once. So there's just so many parts to think about this. And that's why I think, to be honest with you, when people call it a game and stuff, it boils down to that sense of there are players. There's no winners or losers, but you really don't know what you're talking with. And that's why, like I agree with Lorraine Warren, you don't really know what you're talking to. And I don't always think it's the same thing every time. Maybe it's your subconscious one time. Maybe it's the other person who's playing with it. Maybe it's something else other than you two. Maybe it's some psychic thing that's going on. I don't necessarily think it has to be the same thing every time. And there's really no way to prove it except belief. If you're someone who believes that when you go to church and you go to communion, that piece, that wafer, turns into the body of Christ, well, guess what? It does. If you believe that it turns into, the wine turns into his blood, then it does. And you believe that that's, you're taking communion and then you're going to go to confession and you're absolved of your sins. Well, is there proof of that? I mean, people will say, well, Jesus died for our sins, and so that's the proof. Okay. But I don't see that happening, now. So you have to take that leap of faith. It's the same thing with a Ouija board or any spirit communication. You have to take a leap of faith to believe that you might be talking to a spirit. But I wouldn't believe anything. I mean, for everyone who's listening, keep your brains attached. Like, it is amazing, and there's no feeling like it in the world than when you put your hands on the planchette and you ask a question and it moves. And it deliberately stops on the letters and spells out the answers. It is the most amazing feeling in the world. But keep your brains attached and think, is someone else here pushing it? Even if it's not on purpose. Is it their subconscious that's doing it? Is it my subconscious that's doing this? Is there something in this room that's causing this? Is it just our brain that's creating the ghost? Is it just, something really here that we don't understand? All of those things are possible, and that's the beauty.
Do you believe then, Robert, that things can happen when you're using the board that are off the board? And I'll give you a personal example. One time when we were using the board, we were over at a friend's house, and they had a wood stove. That wood stove hadn't been lit since about 9:30 that morning. It was now 10:30 at night. We hop on the board, and all of us adults are there. Nobody's moving towards the wood stove or anything. And all of a sudden, fire kicks up in the wood stove. And we're like, well, who did this? Did one of the kids do it? No. We asked around. Did one of us adults do it? No. And then the owner of the house says, no, that hasn't been lit since 9:30 this morning because it was so warm out. So all of a sudden, the board, the planchette, starts moving faster and faster. And one of us says on the board, was that you who put the fire on? And it goes to yes. And we asked why, and the spirit spelled out, I was cold.
Yeah. And so you want to know, is it possible that other things happen? I think that's the story you're telling is the most common thing. That the scariest stuff that happens playing a Ouija board isn't when you're playing the board. It's that you've opened a portal for something to affect the world around you. So it's usually what happens after, like the noises or what people see or hear. And do I believe that's possible? Yeah, I mean, once you've opened this portal, and I believe it's you. So people forget that the communication that's happening is between you and something else, right? You and your subconscious, you and something else, you and maybe it's a psychic connection with the people you're playing with. But the board is just the telephone. It's just the tool you happen to be using to do this. There's no magical, mystical thing about a piece of paper, cardboard, or wood that has letters and numbers on it. It's what you're doing with it. It's your intent, how you're using it. You are using something that has no powers to do something that takes incredible power, and that's to talk to someone who's moved on. And so once you've open that door in yourself because you're the one communicating, is it possible that door is left open? And yes, I think like if you believe that you can talk to the dead, the more times you try it and attempt it and do it, it's like riding a bike, right? Like you get training wheels, you try until you get really good at it. And just like most psychics will say, they used these devices before they just started having conversations on their own. And so I do think you can open a door. Again, is what we think of as a ghost really the person we loved and missed or that we're trying to contact? Or because we want it to be, can our brains just create something like a poltergeist that can move things in the room and cause things to happen? I mean, we understand very little about the brain. We use a very small percentage of our brain power. Is it possible we do create ghosts because we believe in them? That's just as likely to me as you talking to someone who's died.
Mm-hmm. I fully agree with that, and I find it very interesting that you mentioned the word portal too, that it can open a portal. Is just by taking that planchette to goodbye and saying goodbye, is that enough to close that portal?
Anything you do, you have power over, right? Like, so, I mean, you do something, you start it, you can stop it, but you have to believe as much that you can stop it as you did that you could start it. And that's, what happens in these movies are you play the Ouija board and you've opened something that you couldn't close and that you've released something. And if you believe that, then don't ever play the Ouija board because, like, you're going to worry for the rest of your life that you've opened something up. I found, there are far more evil people in the world than evil spirits. I'm way more afraid of people than I am ghosts, that's for sure. I've seen people do some really bad stuff. And it's like, where it comes to the Ouija board, I equate to guns. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. Like a gun doesn't shoot someone by themselves. It just doesn't. Neither do knives. They just sit there. But people take them and do bad things with them. And I think people can take Ouija boards and do bad things with them as well. It really is the intent of the user.
So let's talk safety for a moment, Robert. In the end, in your opinion, if you were to draw out a safety manual for people, what would it include?
Well, I think if people, whatever their faith is, whatever you believe makes you safer and makes you feel comfortable and in a position of power, you should do it. So for some people, that's imagining they're surrounded by white light. For other people, it's a prayer. For other people, it's making a circle and, holding hands and having other people have, religious icons around or wearing medals. Whatever it is, it could be a simple thing as saying, yeah, I'm in charge, and when I'm say goodbye, this thing's over, and believing it. Whatever puts you in that place, I think play it with, in the beginning, again, if you want it to work, more people. I think it always helps to have more eyes and ears and, hands on the planchette. I think also having someone to write down what you do. People always forget this. Everyone wants to put their hand on the planchette, but someone really needs to be there to write down the messages. Because with something spelling out letters, we don't work that way anymore. And so, as the planchette's, if it's moving fast and it's spelling out letters, it's kind of hard to catch what it's saying. But if someone's job is to just write them down, you can go back over and see the message because, again, sometimes it's just letters in one line. But, and then understanding that there's certain questions you don't want to ask. And if you get something that's bad, that makes you feel uncomfortable or threatened, you slip it to goodbye and you stop. And you try it again. If you keep getting something negative, then put it away for the night. You might be in that funk where, all you're going to get is something that you consider negative. And if you feel really threatened that something bad's happened, then it's like anything else. Don't play it again. Just put it away, give it away, get rid of it, whatever makes you feel better. But again, I would remind people that, again, the conversation is happening between you and something else, just like Lorraine Warren and I have had many conversations about. It's the act of conjuring. Calling something and asking something to come to you and answer. That's the opening of what people talk about as a portal. Do I believe a Ouija board is a portal? No. Like, again, this is you. If you are not around, the ghost doesn't have anyone to talk to, right? And it doesn't necessarily need the Ouija board. So the Ouija board is just the thing you happen to. But because we believe, and again, we give the Ouija board so much power, we make it like the third party. You know what I mean? It's like there's the ghost, and then there's the board. And the board is what we got to get the board out of the house to stop it. No, I don't agree with that. I think if you can talk to ghosts and you start talking to them, then eventually you don't need the Ouija board, right? Like you can bang on the walls, and just like the Fox sisters in 1848. Is there anyone there? Knock once for, yes. Well, knock. Okay. Once for no and two for yes. Like you can ask those questions. I just think, again, the Ouija board is. It's just our modern pop culture way of spirit communication, but there's lots of other ways to do it, and I think they are all equally as dangerous, and they are all equally as not dangerous.
How old should someone be before they start playing with it?
Oh, that's tough, because I think there are young, there are lots of kids that are very young, 30-year-olds. There are very old 6-year-olds. I think, kids on the box, it says ages 8 and above. And that really freaks everyone out, right? Like, oh my God, an 8-year-old. The very first boxes that were made in 1890 show an entire family, including a little girl holding a teddy bear at the board. Now think about that, why that is. Back in 1890, and before that in 1886, entire families worked very differently, right? Children didn't have the same lives we afford them today. They worked at a really young age. You had children if you were on a farm so that they were a farmhand. It wasn't like it is today. So at a very young age, people were doing lots of different things. And again, if you believe that you're just playing around and you're just, hey, is anyone there? Tell me what the lottery numbers are. Is Susie going to marry Bobby? Is that putting anyone in danger? No. But if you're sitting there and you're really trying to talk to the dark forces, well, I don't know if there's any good age for that. So I think if you're a parent, your kids are going to get into everything you don't want them to get into. And so the Ouija board might be one of those things that if you notice your kid starts to get interested in the paranormal, that maybe it's something you sit down and you do with them. The Ouija board was family fun night for many, many, many years before it became family fright night.
Awesome. Robert, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Absolutely a pleasure to have you with us, my man.
Well, thank you so much. And for people who, want to know more about specifically what I'm doing, again, robertmurch.com. You can find me on Facebook. If you look up Robert Murch public page, give it a like. I'm on Twitter at Talking Boards. If you look up Talking Boards, the same thing on Instagram. And again, really, really, really hit up the Talking Board Historical Society. You could do that at the tbhs.org. You can do Talking Board Historical Society on Facebook. We have a Twitter account as well. We're just going to launch Instagram. So, find us and follow us everywhere. And again, go to the website, talk to the other directors. Everyone brings a very different perspective to it than me. I'm, again, just the loudest, apparently.
Awesome. My friend, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, and I look forward to doing it again. Would you ever consider, because I got a lot of questions about this tonight, would you ever consider doing a live Ouija board session on the show?
Of course. I think that'd be great.
Well, why don't we plan that for this summer?
It's a date. Let's do it.
Awesome. I look forward to it. So that's what we're going to do. Spaced Out Radio listeners, hold me accountable on that one. Remind me about it, and we will get that done. RobertMurch.com is Robert's website, and he is, I think, the greatest historian of the Ouija board out there right now. Take care, Robert. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Hope everyone has a good night.
Take care.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Is the 24-hour world starting to wear you down? Let me from Rivulet Reiki and Ratings lend you a hand. Hi, this is Jolene, and if you're in need of Reiki or a realm reading, come to my website, rivuletrr.wix.com/rivuletrr&r, and let us help you out. At Rivulet, I specialize in healing your body, mind, and soul, no matter where you are. And be sure to check out the Rivulet R&R Facebook page for your best deals. Remember, it's time for you to make some time for you.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space Travelers Club. You'll find all you need at spacedoutradio.com. Welcome back to the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We want to thank Robert Murch once again for coming in for the first 2 hours of tonight's show. Absolute pleasure to have him on. We're going to open up the phone lines to you now. 702-302-4556. Tell us your Ouija board stories. I know in the SOR Space Travelers room, there's a lot of people who use the board, including Eric Mothman. Call in. Tell us your stories. We'd love to have you call in. Remember, tomorrow night on the show, we're stepping back into the realm of ETs. R. Keith Andrews, the first Friday of the month. That's extraterrestrial contact talk with him. We are going to get into his experiences tomorrow night, see what brought him to this level of contact, that is. Remember, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. our YouTube channel. That's where we store our archives. You can subscribe to that channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. Once again, we are opening up the phone lines to you. I'll give you the number once again, 702-302-4556. I would love for you guys to call in. Tell me about your Ouija board stories. Were they scary? Were they positive? Did things come true? This is what we're doing tonight. Give us a call. Tell us your story. It's absolute bedlam in the SOR Space Travelers room tonight. It's great to have all of you here. I don't own a Ouija board. I don't have one in my house. It's funny, though, because I asked Robert the question about what's the difference between, say, a Ouija board, which a lot of people, including tonight, it heats up a lot of people. There's a lot of people out there who believe it's evil. There's a lot of people out there who believe that it summons demonic forces, opens up portals that we cannot control. But there are people out there who believe that they get positive responses, whether it's from a crystal ball, whether it's from dowsing, whether it's from using whatever tool you want. Bill Hauser came on the show a couple of times earlier this year and did a live ghost box session. So if we're trying to communicate with the other side, I guess the question that I have for all of you, and I would love to get your opinion, is, can we use a Ouija board the same way we use a pendulum or a dowsing rods or, like Bill Hauser, a ghost box session? Because really, are we not conjuring up the same spirits that we all are? Whether you're using the Ouija board, an angel board, a spirit board, whatever you want to call it, a planchette, or you're using, like I use a pendulum. I have a pendulum that is made out of sodalite. Sodalite works well with me. It calms me down with my depression and anxiety. So it's very interesting to see what goes on with the Ouija board and the bad name it gets. We could be, realistically, dealing with what Hollywood makes it out to be, what religious figures have made it out to be. Or we could be dealing from the pits of hell. I really don't know. But it's interesting to say the least, because there are so many psychic people, and a lot of psychic people who listen to this show on a nightly basis, who communicate with spirits. I think of Eugene Braxton. I think of Corinne de Winter. I think of Pat Penn. I think of many others who listen to this show. Anthony Kenyatta. Elizabeth Anglin. Very talented mediums, psychics. And when you hear them talk about how they can speak to those on the other side, it is a form of communication. Like I said, I use a pendulum. It connects me to my spirit guide that I have had a couple of conversations with. His name is Jordan. And we work that way together. So I'm not quite convinced, like a lot of people are, that the Ouija board is as bad as what Hollywood, whether it's the movie The Exorcist or the movie Ouija, has made it out to be. I'm just not convinced of that. Now, we have a lot of people out there who use it. Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. He uses it quite a bit as a contact. Eric Mothman, in his investigations, Eric's been a guest on this show. He uses it. Barry Strom, there's another one. We had a channeling session with Mu, the extraterrestrial that he talks about and communicates with. We're going to go to the phone lines right now. Area code 727 coming in. Hi, who's this?
Hey, it's Eric.
Hey, Eric, how you doing? Good to hear from you.
Hey, good. Hey, is this Dave?
Yeah, I don't have a call screener.
Oh.
You're
So
on the
who's
air.
talking on the radio? Who's talking on the radio?
Right now, you and me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's how we do it. We just bring you right in. Bring you right in,
Okay,
man.
I'm going to turn the other phone off because there's a delay.
Perfect.
I get it. Okay. Well,
let me just introduce you. Eric has been a guest on this show where we've talked about his extraterrestrial contact as well as his Bigfoot contact down in, I believe it's northwestern Florida, right?
it is. I live in Tampa Bay area in Florida.
Yeah. So, but you do a lot of your communication with your spirit guide. I believe her name is Veronica, if I remember right.
She's not a spirit guide. She's I call her a spirit guide, but she's really just a contact. Your spirit guides are typically your ancestors or angelics. Some people have angelic angels, like Michael the Archangel, and some people have those. Believe it or not, they're called warrior spirits, and that word I didn't ever get defined by Veronica, my contact, but. Because you get answers, you got to move on, or sometimes you get long answers on the spirit board. But all my answers I've recorded, on paper, so I got them all written down. But most of them I just got them memorized, in my head. But a warrior spirit, I guess that would be somebody who is either, she talks about earth warriors, people who clean up, like she knew about my sons who organized an effort out on the beach to clean up the beach. And she called them warrior spirits or earth warriors. So maybe a warrior spirit would be like somebody who's a truther, trying to, So.
Eric, let me ask you, how long have you been using the spirit board?
I've been using it off and on. We had it in my Sunday school when I was back in 1974. I was born in 65. So I remember they pulled it off the shelf when the Exorcist movie came out. That was pulled off the shelf. It was just like a board game up there with Candyland and all the other ones. And I'm sure people remember, if they're my age and remember back, they probably had it in their Sunday school too, because in the 70s, nobody thought, for 100 years, nobody thought nothing bad of the spirit board because everybody, it was the first thing to come out during a party and the last thing to go in. Everybody had fun with it. It wasn't until the movie The Exorcist that everybody got afraid of it. And if you remember the movie The Exorcist, I didn't see it. I don't think I've ever seen the movie The Exorcist. In fact, I've only seen a couple of bits and pieces of it, but I've never watched it. But I remember the adults coming home back in the 70s, and they couldn't even go to sleep. They couldn't go outside at night. They were so afraid of it. So that's what destroyed the Ouija board. So
I've never seen The Exorcist myself. To be honest with you, I haven't seen a horror movie in so long that I don't even remember what they're like. I like I know it's off topic, but I like the suspense movies. I mean, a lot of people didn't like Blair Witch Project. That thing scared the hell out of me. Or the Paranormal Activity series, that one scared the living hell out of me as well. I love that type of movie, but as for pure horror, I'm just not a fan of it.
Yeah, I don't do it because that energy brings negative energy. Even though I go out and investigate it, being a paranormal investigator since the late 90s, I just don't go out. I just don't bring that energy, to myself. If you go out looking for it, that's fine. I've never, I've been, like you see Bobby Mackey's on TV. When I was on TV, and I'm not going to say which show on TV that made that place famous, but, we got in our car and drove right up there. It was like 12-hour trip. And I got right into the floorboards of that place in the basement with a flashlight off and sat in the dirt for hours trying to, back when I used to, provoke spirits, until I started getting on the spirit board more often and started talking to spirits and starting to realize that, hey, these are our ancestors on the other side, and they're telling me not to provoke because, you're provoking it's people on the other side, So there's all a bunch of crap. I never been scratched. I mean, I've been felt up a couple times. One time it was a joke. I was sitting at I was sitting at a table down in the south side of my town. We went down to this woman's house, and she says, there's spirits, watching us when we take showers, me and my granddaughters, and I don't like it. And she looks up and sees them and stuff. And so she thinks there's a gay guy that used to live in the house. So I'm sitting at her table in, a little table outside, and there's 4 of us at the table, and it's dark out, and we just got done with the investigation, and I had an amazing conversation with the spirit there. We're using dowsing rods to communicate, and so we get great answers that way too. It's just like a Ouija board. It's just like any divination like that is contact. And I'm sitting there, and something just whacked me really hard between the legs. I mean, it made, whatever it was, made perfect contact. And I was wearing jeans. I was like, what the heck was that? Before that, I was standing next to Sarah, my friend. And I was standing quite close to her. So I thought she kneed me. She elbowed me, between the legs. And I was like, so I backed up a little bit, and I was like, okay, well, I didn't see her hand move, but she must have hit me, her elbow. So I sat down at the table. It's one of those round tables made out of, white fiberglass for being outside. And, St. Petersburg, Florida, it's got lots of reptiles and stuff outside. And so I jumped when something hit me between the legs. And the woman who owns the house, she's laughing at me, and she's like, we have big toads here. I was like, oh, okay. Oh, that was weird. I said, that's gross. Big, what is that, 1 pound toad jumping between my legs? So I was thinking about getting up and standing up again. And then I got whacked again between the legs. And I was like, then I got my picture in my mind that there's like all these toads under the table jumping around. So I stood up and got out with a flashlight, and I looked, there's not a single toad anywhere. No frogs, nothing. And so obviously we went back in, made contact again, found out it was a gay guy who used to live there, but it was funny. I'm a straight guy, so he knows he was being funny about it. But,
have you ever had a negative experience with the Ouija board, Eric?
No, never had anything negative happen. We used to use it, back when we were teenagers and stuff. I never paid attention to it because I was raised Christian family, didn't believe in Bigfoot, aliens were bogus, everything was bogus, nothing was real. And so I just thought other people were moving the planchette. So, but when I started using it a lot more, like 6 years ago, then I started getting into it. I just had an aha moment, that I started communicating, and instead of, asking, Ouija spirit, when am I going to die? You just don't ever ask those questions. Because now that I know how the universe works, that's a trap. And these are entities on the other side. They're not human entities. They are constructs of the mind, or tulpas. And they are created of the mind, probably. Who knows? Aleister Crowley might have done it, made a few of them and sent them off. But certainly they'll show up at your kitchen table. If you're using a spirit board and you got negative intentions, you're burning candles and you're getting all spooky and you just watched a horror movie and you want to pull the Ouija board out, you're not going to get anybody positive on a Ouija board. I would be very surprised if you did. If you talk about negative things during the day, if you have a fight, with your spouse, or you got negative energy going on, you are a co-creator and you create. I'm not saying the spirits on the other side are created. I heard you mention that a few times, and your guest speaker. I'm quite positive that we are all separate consciousness. We're all separate souls, higher minds. That's the whole idea of this universe is we are all, particles of God particles, miniature holograms, and we're all separate. That's the whole purpose. We're all, making our way back to source. But I've never had a negative experience. I've talked to negative entities on the other on the spirit board, but I tell you, you can get thrown off your game. What you're supposed to do is when you get somebody on a spirit board, if you can't establish whether it's your ancestor, like your grandmother, with a password that you've established before, making sure you know it's her, because negative entities won't know anything about you, won't know your password. They don't. All they do is lie. All you got to do is ask, are you a positive or negative entity? They always tell the truth. They make it a point to tell the truth. I don't know if it's because there's some kind of universal law that, that makes them, but they want to be, I don't think they want to be seen in a negative light. I know that sounds crazy, but, I'm not going to say I've never had any experience with a demon. I'm sure somebody has, but it seems like all the people who are possessed are over by the Vatican. Belong to the Catholic Church, believe in that stuff, bring that energy to themselves. If you ever read Leviticus and Deuteronomy in the Bible, Acts, Genesis, Revelations, actually read those books and ask yourself if that's God speaking. So you get all caught up in that. I'm not saying you can follow any religion you want. I look at the raw material, RA, the law of one. That's the original transmitted spirituality is brought to us several times in history, and it was always distorted into some major religion. So that's my view. I walk in the light. I'm a positive person, and everything is energy. And if you have vibrating something negative, you're going to bring negative energy to you. And there's plenty of negative energy out there. But a negative energy on the spirit board, they're called Z entities. I'm not going to say the names out loud because I don't want that energy coming near me. And I don't ever ask for it, but they come around. When they come around, you're supposed to put the board up. That's what my ancestors, my guides tell you to do. Don't wait 2 hours. I've asked them, don't wait 4 hours. Don't drink a couple beers and come back to it at midnight. Put it up for the night. And I never get a reason why, but, I think I don't have to get a reason why because I know that, you start talking to them and they tell you lies like, oh, the Greys are going to start a war in 2020. Well, they put that in your mind, and then they do it to somebody else, and then they start getting everybody talking. Now they've created a timeline, just like Revelations in the Bible. So many people think, oh, I know how the story ends. I read the book. We're in the final times. You get a billion people thinking that. Well, guess what? Right now, we are in end times. It's a scuttle. This is what negative entities did. Babylonian, tyrannical, extraterrestrials that are still in power today came here 25,000 years ago. They put that. It's not the first time they came around. They come around from planet to planet, solar system, galaxy to galaxy for probably 1 billion years or more, and they know how to control a race of people. And all that is like scuttling a ship before it goes down. They know after a 25,000-year cycle, that is how they scuttle the ship. And if they're not in power by the time this cycle ends, which right now we are in the fifth dimension. It came in 2012. That's why the whole world is at civil war. Everybody's having a civil war in their country except for the United States. Because
that could happen soon.
I have several theories on that, but that's what's going on, and that's what happened. You got everybody talking. Oh, don't use the Ouija board. Oh no, we're in end times. Oh, let's worship Israel. Let's get in the bombers. Let's go get this thing over with. Let's push the buttons. So you got people flying, B-52s heading toward, Iran. Just saying that, with a cross hanging down over the rearview mirror, and then you got the other people on the other side wanting to cut your head off because they're going to get 72 virgins. It's all a lie. And I'm not just saying that's my opinion. That's coming from 27 years of hitting this for 12 hours a day. If I'm not working, I'm studying religion. I'm talking to entities on the other side. I'm asking, who are the demons? Who are the good guys and the bad guys?
I don't know. I'm going to tell you right now, 72 virgins, that's a good holy number. That's a good holy number if it's true. Hey, let me ask you.
Yeah, that ain't happening.
Eric, let me ask you this, because we got about 4 minutes before we're going to take our final break of the night here.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever contacted extraterrestrials on the board?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have one extraterrestrial named Gina. She's a human being from, they don't like to really be called extraterrestrials or aliens. They're called light beings or, friends. They don't want to be defined as that, but that's fine. What else, other people aren't going to understand unless you say extraterrestrial, but definitely an off-worlder. Definitely from the Orion. I think the DZ, when she says I'm the Orion DZ, I think it's the demilitarized zone. I used to think it was the dead zone back, years ago when I was not, thinking more. Like you look at my YouTube channel, I call it A Box of Monsters. I opened that channel like 6 years ago, and I just started uploading my videos 2 years ago. But I wish I never named it that, because that was back when I was doing paranormal investigations, real heavy. You know, I wanted to upload a lot of evidence. Now I just want to, you know, wake people up that, you know, there's many ways, metaphysical ways to contact the other side. You're here to get spiritual knowledge and to grow, and you shouldn't be afraid. And any God that created you would not be offended if you were trying to get answers, rather than somebody just handing you a book and saying, here you go. Here's a book that's, you know, 15,000 changes in it since the one that's the original one in the museum. So it's all a control system, and I want to be out of that control system. I want to get rid of all the brainwashing. It's taken over 25 years, and I still have, and everybody does, brainwashing that is put into you by this system that, you have to use a Ouija board or a crystal ball or dowsing rods or some tool to talk to the other side. You really shouldn't have to. You know, like Gina told me, my extraterrestrial, I'll call her my guide, but, you know, she says those are just tools. She goes, you don't need that. That's just a distraction of the mind. So you can have an excuse to talk to the extraterrestrials or ancestors or whoever you want to. Your mind has the capability of doing that. You just have to remember who you are.
When it comes to extraterrestrial contact, have you talked to many different species of off-worlders, or do you mainly talk to Gina?
I've only talked to one, Gina, and I met her first in my bedroom back in '94 when her and, let's see, I always forget the numbers, 1, 2, her, 3, 4, there's 5 of them, maybe 6. I couldn't look over to my right, but I wasn't sure if there's 6 next. There's a tall one, and then they look like grays. And Gina was the one that was focused on me and communicating with me telepathically. But see, you know, there's different types of grays, and yeah, there's negative ones, and there's mostly positive. But in every race, in everything in the universe, there's always going to be a negative. Just like there's negative Nordics. But when the thing is with the grays is a lot of them, what they are is like a high fidelity robot. This is Gina, that is on the other side of the universe in the Orion belt, and she's not going to risk herself coming here. She didn't have to. Their technology is millions of years ahead of ours. They send a construct, which is probably half biological, half quantum, quantum computers that make up this entity that's actually able to walk through walls. It can dissolve matter, walk through walls. It can use a ship. It could go through, you know, however it is they get here. But she's not going to fly in no ship to get here. They use a construct that can literally send feelings, telepathy, feel the environment, look through the whole room, probably see an infrared, ultraviolet, feel, touch, smell, all through a construct. And that's who I interacted with. I've never met Gina in person, except, believe it or not, I get visits 4 times a month, and I've been getting them for 3 years. And she comes and just like I can tell you right now, there are millions of people getting this at night, and they don't realize it. And I've found a few of them just by, talking to people. But you're one body. It's a metaphysical energy body. You're just inside of what they call a vessel to hold that energy. And that energy can be taken away at night. You could be being trained to be flying on these ships at night with them. They could be teaching you agriculture, their language, everything that it takes to come and get through the event that's coming. And the event might not even be coming in your lifetime. But what they're doing is they're training the human consciousness that's on this energy system, our planet, upgrading our consciousness. It's like the 100 monkey syndrome. You teach a monkey how to wash dirty meat in the river. Well, that all of a sudden all the monkeys are doing it. It's the same thing with humans, and that's what I found out recently. Is like Sarah, she's been taken away thousands of times, and once out of every 1,000 times, she gets an actual where they actually take her on the ship, her physical body. But I'm like, I said, well, something's going to happen soon. I mean, I'm getting nervous here. I'm like, I'm starting to develop my own negative timeline. I mean, it's like, what's going to happen? Asteroids are going to hit, and we're all going to have to start growing turnips and green beans. I have to learn agriculture. But the reality is that, you know, we are so far removed that, you know, if something does happen, nobody can tell the future. The highest order of beings cannot tell the future. Even though the past, present, future are happening at the same time, nothing can predict the future accurately, because we all know nowadays, because of quantum mechanics, you're changing your mind. Just a mere act of putting a red shirt on in the morning instead of a blue one you thought about waking up with, going to work, well, everybody else is changing their mind. It all causes the future to change. So even like a remote viewers, the best universities, you know, I'm not going to mention the names, but there's some out there, and there's PhDs and there's, you know, majors that have been doing it for decades. They're always trying to remote view the future, and they're always wrong. And the further you try to go out, the more wrong you are. And it's a big waste of everybody's time. They're trying to look for temporal subjects in the future to do a temporal mind meld with them so you can find out. Nobody's going to know the future, because the fact is you can't predict the future. There's only one way you can do it, and there's only one group on this planet. Well, there's some others that have had pretty good luck with it, but it has to do with nature, and the probability of being correct is not 100%. But the Hopi Indians were successful at it, but it's very limited. I mean, you know, look what they came up with. Yeah, crisscrossing the nation. You know, looks like the railroad tracks crisscrossing the nation, and you know, it's all like Nostradamus stuff. I mean, could it be what they're talking about, or is it not what they're talking about? But when I asked Veronica,
Eric, I'm going to get you to hold on one second. I'm going to hop out for a break here. Do you want to stick around?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's talk about it.
All right. Well, of course you do. I know. That's why
I
love
got my story too. Don't forget, I got my story.
Which story?
Money.
Which story?
Ouija story.
Yes,
that's
tell
why
me
I call
about
it. My Ouija story.
Yeah, remember that? Okay. Hold on one second. We're open lines right now on Spaced Out Radio. We're talking with guest Eric on the phone. Eric Mothman. He's been a guest a couple times on this show. He's going to tell us his Ouija story right after this. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be right back after a final break of the night.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio?
Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us.
From the radio, commercials, to banners, to social media.
Have a product you'd like our host to endorse? We can do that too.
Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry.
Right here, this is where we divulge the fruit of our research. Here on the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on Spaced Out Radio.
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners, for only $5 a month you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where two members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
The last Monday of the month on Spaced Out Radio is a night of psychic vision, mediumship, UFO and ET contact, Bigfoot stories, animal communication, and so much more with me, Elizabeth Anglin. I'd love it if you would join host Dave Scott and I on the myriad of topics we delve into. Every month, we share new views that may help you understand your own experiences. So tune on in at spacedoutradio.com and stamp your cosmic passport.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Missed most of tonight's show? Don't worry, you didn't miss a thing. You can head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and download our archives for free. And don't forget to get your Space Travelers membership today. Now, back to tonight's show. Welcome back to the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Always a pleasure to be with you on this Thursday night, early Friday morning. Want to say thank you for listening in. If you're on the SHR Media Network, in Paranormal Forum, Spaced Out Radio's chat room on Spreaker, Euphoria Chronicles, and SOR Space Travelers on Facebook. Glad to have you all with us. Tomorrow night on the show, our Keith Andrews is back for his monthly ET Talk. We'll talk to him about his own experiences tomorrow night on the show. Remember, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also find us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show. You can subscribe to that. And our website is spacedoutradio.com. We open up the phone lines to you. Tell us about your Ouija stories. Before I bring Eric back on, I do have a question from the Spaced Out Radio chat room from Brittany. Have you ever used any of these new apps or spirit boxes to talk to spirit, or do you strictly use the Ouija board? I don't use a Ouija board. I know Eric does, and maybe, Eric, you can answer this question right after I'm done. But I have used a couple of spirit boxes, or pardon me, spirit board apps, and I'm not going to give out their names because the fact is they're not paying me to do so, except for Spirit Storybox. I have used Spirit Storybox. I have had some fun with it, some success with it. I've noticed that it has been very accurate at times, and sometimes it just doesn't make sense to me. There's another app out there that I was using for a while, and it would actually say it would detect spirits and automatically bring your camera to life and take a picture of it. And I got one really weird picture, and I have to find it because I believe it's on my old computer. But I pointed my camera towards my stairway, and I was amazed at what popped up on it. There is this glowing red outline that is actually standing on my stairwell. And the weird part about it is, if it was faked, or if it was just part of the app, the red would have been all over, I think. It would have smudged. It would have been on the railing going down to the stairway. But it wasn't. You could actually see through the railing and where the red continues. And it, to be honest with you, I call it Elmo, because it looked like an Elmo, as weird as that sounds. I have to find the picture, and I have to get it up on our website, and I have to get it up on our social media, because to me, it was just mind-blowing that this entity, whatever it was, Elmo, had appeared. Eric, do you use anything else besides a Ouija board? Have you ever tried any apps?
Well, I got my downstairs office is filled with suitcases of electronic equipment. I've been buying gadgets for 20 years. I mean, I got like 10 of everything. I got probably 35 voice recorders, all from the, DDR60, the good one, the one everybody uses on TV, all the way up to the latest model. I just don't use any of it no more. When I go to a house to do an investigation, if I chat with the homeowner, and so many people have, I use Spirit Board now because it's a direct communication. And you go into somebody's house, you want to find out, what's going on in there. It's usually nothing what they think it is. But 7 out of 10 people are okay with the Spirit Board, and they even want to jump in. And some people don't want to. If they don't want to, then I just watch my team play with their gadgets. But I don't use electronic gadgets anymore because what I found out is you are not going to get any high vibrational being. You could, but they're going to have to lower their vibration to get onto a spirit recorder, voice box, a voice recorder, any of those things, because so a Ouija board is a different kind of communication. It's not, electronics. They have to, those are all, from what Veronica also said, they are lower astral beings. That's why the things they say, just, they may be profound and they can say something in a sentence that's like you think about it for days, but it's just meaningless. And a lot of times it's crude, or, they're always talking about demons or the devil. That stuff really isn't going on in heavenly dimensions where your ancestors are. These are people who are negative in life, and when you pass on to the other side, you are drawn into a dimension that accepts you. People who practice black magic, they go into, I got the names of these written down, but there's millions of them, but there's major ones out there. You practice magic, you're going into that dimension, you're separated. So say say somebody close to you died, somebody younger, sibling, or, when you're kids, somebody passed on and you're like, God, what are they on the other side with this being? They're not. They're separated. And sometimes you could be separated from your own family on the other side, your own loved ones, because of their beliefs. If they to go to the other side with all this crazy, spiritual dogma, religious dogma, and they're thinking I got to go into the white light and stuck in a life review, and they're stuck in an endless loop, you can get lost from that person, and that happens. So the best thing to do is, when you always keep learning in life, keep an open mind, never close your mind on anything. When you go to the other side, because that's what you're here for. You're here to get knowledge and to live life, learn about life and get knowledge. That's exactly what Gina told me, the extraterrestrial. Because I asked her, I said, why are all these things? I got so many things that happen to me in my life that's unbelievable. And my brother is completely opposite. My older brother never had anything happen to him. Even though he was involved in some of the things that happened to me with extraterrestrials, he just, his mind won't accept it. His higher mind won't allow that into it, into his paradigm. But, when you go to the other side, if you've got an open mind, you go into what's called the blue water AKA. I don't know what AKA stands for, but the blue water AKA is where you can manifest anywhere at any time. You're not bound by space or time. You can go to one of the moons on Saturn and look at something there. You're not bound by anything. You create your own boundaries when you pass away. If the most haunted houses we go to are people who are bound up in religions that judge people. They go to church, and when they pull out, they'll be cutting people off on the way out. They sin, and then they want their sins forgiven every time they sin. Those people are usually housebound, and they're still judging people. People move into the house, and they get mad when they tear the wallpaper down. You ask them what's up, they're, one of them, the worst one that I ever talked to was he used to sell Bibles on horseback in the 1800s, and owned a church right next door that still stands. And he's stuck in his house. That's where he is. That's his dimension, that house.
Hey, let me ask you your Ouija board story.
Well, let me finish the one story so people don't think I'm crazy about Gina coming to visit me 4 times a month.
Sure.
Let me finish that one. Well, I'll tell you how she visits me, and it's happening to a lot of people. I tell you, when I tell these stories to some people, these different stories that I'm uncovering, for one thing, there's government insiders that have come forward. Secret Space Program insiders. Corey Good, he's one of my favorite ones. That guy is spot on. I always verify through Veronica people who write books, who's got books that are, legitimate. Are they lying? Are they not lying? Is this material correct? Is it not correct? And she'll tell me right off. She'll investigate and tell me right off in 2 seconds. Says Corey Good is exactly who he is, and everything he says, he believes it to be true. what he knows to believe, what he's saying. But Gina, when she comes to visit me, the reason why she visits me 4 times a month, and she comes in you'll either get these communications the last 20 seconds before you wake up, which is actually feels like an hour dream, but really it's a REM stage, or you'll get it the first 20 seconds when you go to bed, when you first fall asleep. Now that should resonate for some people listening to this, because a lot of people, probably everybody's getting this. But my circumstance is a little bit different. Like 3 years ago, I announced in my paranormal group, our investigators, we're all sitting around drinking some beers and stuff, whatever they were. I don't drink. But I said, we're talking about the New World Order, the IRS, all these other 68 alphabet agencies that have just now taken over the world. It was a lot different 3 years ago. Now we're a lot closer to being free. In fact, we're supposed to be free now. But back then, it was looking really bleak. And I was like, I feel like I'm really, real spiritually advanced. Like I'm just too good for this, New World Order crap. I didn't come here to be, to get caught up in that. And people just aren't waking up, They're allowing this stuff to happen. So I said, you know what? Next time when I pass over on the other side, I'm not coming back to this place. I'm done with this place. So I can tell you, whenever you say things, there are higher density beings always listening. Probably unless you're on the phone in the bathroom. They probably don't listen in there. In fact, I know they don't. But when you're in public around other people, when you say things, there are 7 high density light being races that manage the races on Earth. And I know that to be true. And I think I don't know that for a fact, but I think every single human is being, overseen by this. And I actually have the names of these races. I looked from the other day. I couldn't find them, but I have them in my books. But Gina, evidently, is the one. She's been with me she's going, this race, it's called the DZ Orions, have been in my bloodline since the AI, which I think is Atlantis Inception. I believe that's what it is. I never could get that answer out of them. But it goes back, my mother's mom, her grandmother. My whole family's got stories of the same extraterrestrial vehicles and same beings. So my mom told me all her stories right before she died. But Gina comes to me, since I said that, my higher mind was actually serious. I wasn't joking around. Why come here and be in bondage? That's not what I came here for. And so what that was determined that would be my last time incarnating, because I've had like 8 million incarnations. So even though I'm not ready, what they're doing is they're speeding things up. So 4 times a month, once a week, I'm visited. And what Gina does, her job is to go through and put me through experiences where you would normally get those in life, and I get it in my REM sleep. And I experience it that way. And they're pretty traumatic and dramatic, just like you would experience this stuff in life. And I got a lot of them written down, but one of them, she said, I'll never forget this one. This was like probably 3 months ago. I think I might have said this on your show too. And I was in a situation where I was like at a family function. I'm hugging everybody, my kids, basically. And Gina's always standing to my right behind me. I can see what she looks like, but only out of the corner of my eye. She's all business. She's a tall blonde and like a Nordic haircut, but she's like, she's there for a purpose only. So here's what I got. She said to me after, at the end of my dream, I don't think they're dreams. I think they're actually experiences. That's why everything is energy. But she's like, why are you always the first one to let go when you hug? So I was like that hit me hard. I was like, damn, she's right, And that's probably true with a lot of people, But really that's not a good, trait to have. You should be the last one to, let go when you hug. What would the world be if that was the way? But I don't think that stuff during the day. That stuff never goes through my mind. So that was just one of the things. That was my Sunday experience on that week. That was my lesson for that week. So what it is, it's to build your character, bring you up to a level where So I'm like, well, what am I going to do if I'm not going to incarnate here again? So I'm asking Veronica this, and she says, well, you're going to be a guide. So there are, billions of guides on the other side. Every human has 1 to 3 guides. And guides, what they basically do mostly is just comfort you when you're going through your crappy times. But once you're a guide, there's no turning back. And I was like, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for that. I just said, I don't want to incarnate back on this shithole. I want to go someplace else, like in the Orion group or, one of these other higher vibration planets, But that doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. Once you're caught up in the karmic energy system of this planet, and you got offspring and, incarnations and friends, well, this is your home. Even though if you're in the blue water dimension, when you pass away, you can manifest anywhere you want, but when you incarnate, this is where you're at. Unless somebody puts your soul in a box and brings you someplace else to be a walk-in. Whether that's possible or not with, a human spirit, but there's lots of walk-ins. Walk-ins are spiritual souls that come from other planets that incarnate here. And they're willing to go ahead and get caught up in this karmic cycle. These are things I'm finding out from talking to, high-density spirits, higher-level being, earth spirits. And if you go on the raw material, the Law of One, the 5 volumes, everything I've ever found out to be true in 27 years of hitting this hard and 16 years of study, you can open up any chapter in that book and you'll see that the raw consciousness, when that material was transmitted back in 1978, 79, that is the original teachings of Hermetics, how the universe works. And it was given to us several times in history, and that raw consciousness is here today again. They answered a calling from, back in the 80s when billions of people were so pissed off and frustrated with the way this earth is going, where there's no hope in sight. They're like, oh my God, aliens, please come here and save us. Well, they heard that, and they're here. And they also came because there's galactic wave X is a 25,000-year cycle that's coming, that is right now in our solar system. And it's making positive people more positive and more spiritual. Negative people are even more negative. So they're here buffering that energy. So that's what it is. That's a metaphysical contact. It's, a spiritual contact. So as Veronica, I was like, Gina, so I'm basically interacting with a light being. So it's not a real person. She goes, she'll answer like, you're a light being. Everybody is a light being. The only difference is your energy. When you die, it's just a change of energy. There is no such thing as death. So you're experiencing in your illusion a physical reality, and her reality is a high density, millions of more incarnations, higher involvement. That's where you're all going on this planet. Everybody's going somewhere. Everybody's moving back to source, vibrating higher and higher.
Eric,
so that's what's happening with me in my life. And I was like, well, what the heck am I, so maybe I do want to incarnate more. If the things get better, the New World Order gets canceled, it gets thrown out. And life is good on this planet. And she says, well, once you're brought through the teachings, that's it. She goes, you should be happy. That's what you're supposed to go through, ideally, one lifetime and not have to keep doing this over and over again. She goes, but the way you've been enslaved over 25,000 years, this is your energy system. You can live 110 years and die a spiritual instant. You don't understand how the universe works. The things you're supposed to come here and learn, you can learn in one lifetime. Jesus learned it in a lifetime. Through his travel of decades, looking at all, spiritualities and even religions and the church, and he found what works, and he remembered who he was. So that's what the whole idea. That took a while to sink into my noggin that, hey, but, that's, you're not going through the misery and the heartache and the problems and every day and, the good things. But on the other side, it's a party on the other side. I mean, Veronica, she's in the blue water. She's a high density spirit, high evolved. She says she's equal with Gina in vibration. And, she does whatever she wants. When you talk to her in the middle of the day, where she at? She's in Turkey. She's over there helping people. Talk to her at night. She's sitting on the beach in Grand Cayman, It's just a different energy, and it's the same thing. Life continues on the other side. There's no difference. So,
Eric, we only have a couple minutes left. I would like to quickly have you tell your Ouija board story.
Well, we're planning on going on a Ouija all day that day. And with my group, there's 4 of us in the group at the time, and we're all going to use the spirit board that night. And everything was positive that day, thinking good things. We're all excited about doing it. And so we're like talking about, okay, well, who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to contact? I'm talking about my older brother. I got an older brother that died, and he passed away in 2010. I'm like, I'll get him on, see what he says. He didn't believe in any of this stuff. I'd be interested, when you get somebody who's a non-believer and get them on a spirit board, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right, it works. It's pretty neat. So, anyways, my older brother was a big fan of JFK. So we all asked for somebody famous to come through. So I always wanted to talk to John F. Kennedy, see what his, opinions are and what, get some inside scoop on what happened, because now he's on a perch on the other side. He knows damn well what happened, the truth. So I want to solve that mystery, because I always use a spirit board for investigating. That's what I use it for. Not many people use a spirit board for that. So everybody came through. The session lasted 88 minutes. Everybody was our spirit guides. We asked our spirit guides to line up everybody. That's the best way to do it. So our spirit guides, it was like clockwork. Everybody in and out. Oh, hey, Uncle Tom, hey, blah, 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 talking to everybody. And I noticed a cherry tree died out front. Oh, yeah, that's definitely my uncle, So everybody's in now. And then I talked to my brother Arthur, found out he was talking to JFK for an hour, waiting for everybody to get done in there. So actually our session lasted about 15 minutes with JFK. My brother's like, well, you got somebody who wants to talk to you. I'm like, well, who is it? Then the initials came through, JFK. Sometimes you get a spirit on the other side you can't spell. And I asked Veronica, so how can you get some spirits that just can't spell on the other side? I mean, that you could spell when they died. Well, the thing is that, when you die on the other side, your vision is crossed. Because right now, your brain is switching everything upside down and right side up with your brain. And you have to learn how to see that way when you're born. And then when you die, you have to unconvert that again. And some people can't do that. Some spirits can't do it. So when they come through the Ouija board, all you get is crazy letters. And, a lot of people don't understand what's going on there. That's the fact. That, like my girlfriend's Bonnie's father, when he comes through, he can answer yes or no, but you ask him to spell something, and you got to hold the piece of paper up in the mirror and turn it upside down for it to read it. People think that's negative energy or demons, but it's not. It's somebody who just, hasn't crossed it over, for whatever reason. But JFK, I'm like asking him these questions. I'm like, well, who shot you? Where were you shot at? What was the reason? And anything about it, he was answering the questions like, where'd you get, who shot you? And he'd say, a man, and I go, well, where'd he shoot you at? In the neck. But he'd always, skirt the answer. And the reason why I did that, the reason why he's doing that, Brock, is like when he's protecting you. Just the reason why, when you asked about 911, the same reason why I gave you the answers that I did. And the other time you asked about something else going on, I told you to hush, because you videotape your sessions. So this information, the same people that are, that were in power then are still in power now. So, you're not going to get those answers. And JFK is not going to throw you on the bus either. Amazing, just amazing energy when JFK was in our living room. In fact, I went out and bought $5,000 of the living room furniture just because I was embarrassed when he was here. I mean, it just felt like I was in the Oval Office when he was here. It was amazing. I asked him, I said, I always want validation, too. I said, okay, well, anybody could give me the answers. I didn't know exactly what year he died. Unfortunately, I was not real big on history back then. What was the day? He answered all those questions perfectly, but, a lot of people were 60, 70 when they died can answer those questions. So I was like, I need something else. Validate something else as JFK. I mean, the answers are just amazing. Who are you hanging out with? He said Eleanor. So he's hanging out with Eleanor. I was like, didn't she die like 20 years before him? But I Googled it, and they used to do, fundraising together, Eleanor Roosevelt and JFK. So there's pictures on the Google of them too. So I was like, oh, he's not hanging out with his wife anymore, so maybe he's hanging out with Eleanor. So I was like, well, give me something else. He gave me, he goes, well, he's interested in this, always been interested in the space program. He gave me, let's see, 1, 2, 3, probably an 8-digit number that has no search engines on the internet. See, spirits on the other side, your light being on the other side when you're spirit, if you're high density, you know every single word on the internet. Gina from the Orion system knows everything on our internet, every word, everything off the top of her head. She has full access to it. Her internet, our internet. And she's validated that to me many times, going back and forth. I ask her, can I find that on the internet? She'll say yes or no, and that she's always right. It takes a while to find some of the stuff she tells me. But I get on there and I type in this number that JFK gave me, and the thing is everything is hidden in plain sight. That's the Babylonian Black Sun cult system that we're in. You have to volunteer yourself into their system. They give you remedy. You have to really research it. Everything leaves you an out, but you are actually volunteering yourself in to be, to be fed into the system. A lot of people don't realize that, but even cops don't know. Go up to a cop, he'll trick you into surrendering your rights. And it's the same thing like with taxes, the sweat tax. You're self-assessing yourself every year on April 15th. So you're doing all these things. They're not violating your rights. You're surrendering your rights. That's the Babylonian money magic cult, Black Sun cult. That's the way it works. The numbers he gave me, the 2 million pictures from the Clementine project, the Clementine satellite that was sent up, project that came after him, but all those 2 million pictures are in the public venue. But just like one of the admirals said many years ago in a book, he said, those pictures, what you need, if you're looking at an alien base on the moon, what you're looking for, you'll find it if you look hard enough. When you find it, bring it to me. Nobody has ever looked through 2 million pictures that are available online, purposely uploaded for the public. He gave me the code number to get right to it. I went
Eric,
right to it.
It's time for me to start shutting this down, my friend. I hate to tell you, but it's time for me to start shutting this down.
Okay, buddy.
Hey, you hold on, Eric, and for a couple of seconds. I want to chat with you off the air. I want to say thank you to absolutely everyone who is taking part on SHR Media Network, Spaced Out Radio Chat Room, Paranormal Forum, and on Facebook, the SOR Space Travelers and Euphoria Chronicles. Absolutely appreciate all of you tuning in. Tomorrow night on the show, we're getting back into the ET realm. Our Keith Andrews will join us. We're going to ask him his stories, how he got involved with getting to know so many different extraterrestrial species that have visited this planet. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel, where we store our archives, is Spaced Out Radio Show. Click the subscribe button to that. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. I want to say thank you to everyone who participated tonight. Eric Mothman, who's just finished up with us. Robert Murch before him, talking about the Ouija board tonight. Now, we finish up with rocking out to Bumblefoot. Got to check out his new band, Art of Anarchy. It's fantastic. Solo album, Little Brother is Watching, can be found on our website, spacedoutradio.com. He is the Spaced Out Radio music guru. Send him a message. Tell him you heard it on this show. You heard his tunes on this show. He will get back to you. William Walkup, one of our loyal listeners, he did that. He was surprised that Bumblefoot actually got back to him. He's a real dude. That's what it's all about. We'll talk to you in exactly 21 hours. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Good night.
This is the new totalitarian state. 1,000 eyes are waiting for you to break. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you.